Okay, so let's get started, guys. I think it's already 5 minutes past the hour. What I'll do is that I will quickly go through the presentation. Anytime in between, please feel free to ask questions. You don't need to wait until the very end. Quite a lot of information is covered in this, and I have given additional information inside the slides, which I may not actually go through in detail. But I do plan to provide of this presentation so people can read later on. So you don't need to take notes. If you want to take notes, that's okay, but you don't need to take notes. And at the end, I'll be open to any questions that you might have regarding this topic. Okay, so this is basically a guide for retirement planning guide for Indian Americans, people like me who lived in the US for a long time, who choosing to live in India now, and commuting between those two countries. First, a few hold on. Okay, so first a few disclaimers. I want to make sure I tell what it is. This is not a professional advice because a lot of what I'm going to talk about investments and planning for investments, planning for insurance, planning for estate planning. I'm not a professional financial planner, so this is not professional advice. It's basically information based on my own experience. So I expect people to use this as a guide to plan their own retirement and not take it as professional advice. It's also only for educational purposes. I would definitely advise you to seek qualified professionals for various aspects of the retirement planning process. All the information I have here are from publicly available information, a lot of it from government websites, US government websites, as well as Indian government websites. A lot of it comes from books and research I did by talking to people, by working with people, etc. A lot of the conversations I had with people in the US and people who have come back to India like me, and try to synthesize all this information as relevant in this presentation. So it's basically a collection of a lot of different conversations, really, more than anything else, augmented with information from websites. This is a pro bono service. I'm doing it as my community service to the community to help people learn this planning. It has zero commercial sponsorship. This is one of the many presentations. Some of you might have seen my earlier webinars. I've done about a dozen webinars on various topics including return to India, topics including investment opportunities for NRIs in India. I do things about immigration, taxation, and foreign exchange management. I done seminars on angel investment, seminars on mentoring, seminars on international business management. All this are done under this platform CG Connect. My idea is that whenever I encounter a situation I'm trying to solve, I try to document it as much as possible so it could be useful for people in the future. So all those presentations are also available. So you can, if anyone wants a presentation. Other areas I do more now is more on mental health. I'm a practicing psychologist, and so I do a lot of presentations on mental health. So any of those things of interest to you, I'll be happy to present to you guys again. Okay, a little bit about myself. As I told you, I'm a CG alumnus from 1985 mechanical engineering. In 2020, during COVID, I decided to go back to college and get a master's in psychology. So now today I'm a full-time practicing counseling psychologist and psychotherapist. The demand for psychological counseling is tremendous. I do an average of 3 to 4 hours of counseling every single day, 7 days a week, and the demand is just far exceeds capacity. So many people are needing help nowadays because of various situations. Just to give you a flavor, almost all my clients are in the age group from 18 to 35. Very few I have who are more than 40 years old. Majority of my clients are 18 to 35. 90% of my clients are women. So I speak to young women several days, every single day about their challenges. And it has been an extremely fulfilling experience helping people to navigate through life's challenges. I also have experience working in the US and here. I ran public and private limited companies in the US. From 2012 to 2020, I ran a NASDAQ listed company, living in India and running a public listed company in the US. It was an experiment which I wouldn't advise anyone taking over because it's a ridiculously difficult job to do. But that company was an IT services company based in Pittsburgh, which I ran from here, and that's a $160 million company with employees mostly in the US. We also had operations in the Middle East as well as in India as well. So former CEO with extensive global experience. I also an angel investor for the last 15 years. I invest in startups both in US as well as in India. In the US, I'm investing as part of an organization which some of you might know called Gindi Alumni Angels. This is CG Alumni. We formed a team of people in Santa Clara, California, and we invest in startups together through an organization called the India Alumni Angels. In India, there are several alumni groups I am part of. I invest through Chennai Angels. I also invest through Kiratsu and Native Lead Angels. So very active in the startup ecosystem. I'm also a Stanford Seed Mentor. Stanford University Global School of Business runs mentoring programs for startups all over the world, and they choose mentors from each geography to help the startups. So I've been a Stanford University mentor for the last 6 years, and every year you end up mentoring about 3 to 4 startups, all high profile and high visibility and high quality startups as well. Further, I do a lot of social work in India, empowering marginalized. We do work in poverty eradication, in education, etc. Quite a lot of work, and of course, I spend more of my time in mental health as well here. I have a degree in engineering, mechanical engineering from CEG, and I have advanced degree in operations management, operations research and management from the US, from the State University of New York, and of course a master's in psychology from Symbiosis University in India. I'm a amateur marathoner. I've done 14 half marathons in the last 11 years. My first run was when I was 49 years old. So the motivation people is that if you think you want to run, anybody can start running anytime. After starting in age 49, I've done 13 half marathons so far. And of course, we also do a little bit of integrated organic farming. Since last year, since 2 years ago, I started a new business in India. This might be relevant to some of you. We have a business where we take care of senior citizens in their own home. Senior citizens who do not want to go to a assisted living or a old age home, who want to stay in their own home but who are not able to take care of themselves. We have a subscription service which we offer where we take care of all the services that they need from one place. The best way to describe this service is that imagine if your parents or your relatives are alone here in India. If you were to be there with them here, whatever that you will do, we'll do the same thing. So you're basically your proxy here. And with one single phone call, they can get all the services done. That business is also something which I'm running here in India for the last 2 years. It's going quite well. We have more than 25 clients in Chennai who are making use of the service. Okay. So coming to the topic of the day, what does retirement mean to you? I got to be careful because when I ask different people, what does retirement mean? People have various definitions of what they call retirement. I spent a lot of time thinking about it to say, what does retirement mean? And in fact, I wrote a blog about 3 years ago, which some of you might have read, saying that there are multiple ways of defining retirement, and depending upon which definition you accept, you adopt. I may have retired about 20 years ago to not have retired at all. So different answers depending upon how you define it. But it is definitely a deeply personal transition. So I don't mean by any means to say that whatever I'm presenting here is the best possible answer. This is what worked for me very well. After a lot of trial and error and iterations, what I'm going to show you is what works for me very well. I'm hoping that some aspects of you could be useful to you or relevant to you, and some may not be. But please read this when you follow through the presentation. Please make sure that this is not only way to do this. This is one of the ways that has worked out very well. So what does retirement mean? Basically, you have to think about whether it involves preparing for a longer life post full-time employment or maintaining a standard of living. You obviously want to meet your daily expenses when you don't have a regular income. You want to make sure that your staying power of your money is there to fight inflation. Some of you might want to leave a legacy. You want to provide some heirloom to your children and your grandchildren. And some of you might have post-retirement goals. I had a lot of post-retirement goals, which I made a list of, and I'm happy to say that I'm doing very well in terms of doing all the bucket list items in my list, which at some point I'll tell you what the items are. Okay. So in terms of what people generally look for, what are the things they start thinking about when they think about retirement planning? One is you want to make sure you avoid running out of money. One of the most common concerns most people have is to ensure that they're not running out of money. You don't want to be forced to return to work. You want to make sure that you have the ability to work or not work according to your choice and not have to work. You don't want to be dependent on children, which is what I would advise, based on my experience, that the more you plan to be completely independent of yourself, the better off you are. You also want to have low volatility. Low volatility alone won't solve your problems. You have to make sure that that you have the right amount of money available at the right time. Maintaining or improving your lifestyle. Definitely want to keep your purchasing power. You want to plan for comfort, not just survival. After all, we worked a long number of years to earn this money, so you want to make sure you live comfortably, not just survive. And you also make sure that the money you have it's earning the money and saving the money is one thing. Making sure the money actually meets your needs is another thing. So you need to make sure that the money is kept in places, invested in places, so that the money grows faster than inflation. You may want to grow your base and leave a legacy for your children or grandchildren. As I said, some of you might have charitable giving goals or growth-oriented investment approaches. I can talk to you a little bit about what it takes to do charitable giving in India. If you're living in the US, it's not as straightforward as you think, but I have gone through that process, and I'm very happy to say that I'm supporting about half a dozen NGOs in India now on various areas, both with my resources in India as well as resources in the US. Some people might say that, hey, there's a concept said that, die poor, where you can want to spend all the money when you have before you go away. That's another approach. If you want to do that, it's obviously risky because you don't know when you're going to go. So you want to make sure that you don't spend too fast, too soon. So some of them wait to spend every rupee, and risk of outliving is high in this particular scenario. So really what you have to do is prioritize your objectives. What is your current lifestyle? What kind of lifestyle you want to have in your retirement? What are the investment risks, and what do you want to do with your money for your future, etc. Just to give you some context, people want to know where I am in my life. I am actually 61 years old. I stopped working full time, as I said, in 2020. Right when COVID started, I stopped working full time. The last job I had was the CEO of the company, Nasdaq company in Pittsburgh. Since then, I did the course in psychological counseling, got a degree in psychology, and do counseling. So counseling fee is one stream of revenue that I get regularly now, and exits from angel investments is another source of income that I get. It's not regular, it's not every year, but when you do have exits, you get a bunch of money in one stroke. So that lets me carry on for several years. The last exit I had from one of the companies in India gave me enough money to spend for the next 7 years. So my income nowadays is not regular, it's not monthly, but it is sporadic. I try to use that money in addition to my passive investment income to run my life. So I don't have a full-time job. All what I do is to try and do what I like to do, and continue that way. So people who are thinking about when I should retire, and I would say there's no one good year to pick. I chose to do this because I did not want to work full-time after I turned 55, and I had planned it all along that way, and fortunately things have worked out so far the way I had intended to do. So please keep that in mind. There is no one particular time to do it. So the retirement was avoiding running out of money. So every decision that you make in is going to involve some trade-off. So you have to fix your retirement age. With people who are working, historically, it used to be for people working in government jobs. The government had a hard date. In India, it was 58 years old. So that became the retirement for most people by default. Nowadays, people who work in private jobs are doing their own business. There is no real such hard date. So you could choose when you want to do. It also depends on your healthcare needs, your investment risk, how much risk you're willing to take in investments. Do you want to leave any legacy for your children, and what kind of retirement lifestyle you want to adopt? So all this have to be taken into account when you are figuring out what you want to plan for, right? I want to introduce a new concept called Henry. Some of you might have heard this thing: high earner, not rich yet. This is a classic definition of most Indian Americans who live in the US. They all earn well above average. The latest statistic says that the average income of an Indian American family in the US is $178,000 average. So we earn much above average. The median income for people in the United States is less than 70,000. So Indian Americans make more than 2.5 times the income as opposed to the average median income for most people in the US. But lifestyle inflation also quickly starts growing for our community. I'm saying this based on my own experience, as well as experience seeing people. When I visit the US every single year, I spend a lot of time with my friends and my network all through the country, and I notice how people have adopted to their lifestyles there as time goes by. So lifestyle inflation, I see, is quite high. And so what that does is that despite having very high income, people haven't had much money saved for retirement. So I want to make sure that you understand this high earner, not rich yet, is a typical concept for people in the US. So we have the highest median household income, but a high maintenance lifestyle quickly erodes that. High income does not automatically mean retirement readiness. So just because you have a very high household income doesn't mean you might be prepared for retirement very early. Most people I speak to, particularly Indian Americans, realize this only in their 40s and 50s. I didn't realize it until I was 40. So I was a classic example where until 40, I didn't really care what future was going to look like. I was doing whatever I had to do. But then later on, I realized, fortunately for me, I chose to return back from the US to India when I was 39 years old. So that forced me to think about the future. But I continue to work for US companies, earning income in US dollars for a significant amount of time while living in India. So that helped in my particular case to catch up really quickly in terms of putting money away for retirement, which is helping me a lot right now. But for those who are going to be continuing to live in the US, I would say that the sooner you start the planning, you don't need to necessarily put aside a lot of money in the beginning, but at least have a plan to start as early as possible. The power of compounding is incredible. It's truly incredible. So I would say that even if you're in your 30s or if you're early 40s, it's never too late to start making this plan, and we can incrementally build on that. The American cost reality now, I wrote an article about it recently as well, that the last 3 trips I made to the US, I could perceptibly see the increase in cost of living in the US. So retiring in the US means facing some of the biggest challenges in terms of cost for healthcare, housing, and long-term care. Long-term care is really scary in the US. What I found out this year when I'm meeting people who are in long-term care in the US, the costs are just incredibly very high. So living in the US has its own challenges. So high cost of healthcare, high cost of housing, and long-term care. A $200,000 income today, during the time when I was in the US in the late 80s and early 90s, a $200,000 income would be a tremendously high income. Today, I don't see that being very big. I know people who are working, both husband and wife working and making $300,000. Many of them come to me for financial counseling saying they're not able to save any money. That's the reality we're living in right now, right? The costs have gone up a lot for most things. So what I would say is that because of all this, try and start your retirement planning early, even if you're not very close to retirement. Start your plan very early. So the way I look at it, there are 4 levels of financial freedom. Level 1 is financially solvent. I think most Indian Americans are financially solvent. None of us are going to be in a situation where you're going to declare bankruptcy anytime soon, right? So level 1 is financially solvent, where there is no high interest debt. You're not carrying too many credit card debt. You have at least 3 months of this available to you, ready to spend whenever you want, and then, but you're still vulnerable to job loss. People who have or in temporary immigrant visas have a bigger problem because a job loss also means that you lose your insurance, you lose your stay as well. But level 1 is a financial solvent, and level 2 is where most people I see, people who are in the 30s and 40s are in the level 2, which is they have 6 to 12 months of savings. They all have some sort of a retirement account, either a 401k or a IRA, and most of them only carry low interest debt. They might have a debt for the car, maybe they may have a debt for some other educational debt, etc., but it's all low interest debt. Level 3 is what I would call financially independent, where you have at least 10 plus years of savings, you have multiple income streams to support yourself, and you only have mortgage type debt, not any other debt, basically. And the level 4 is what you really want to be, which is financially free, where you never have to work again. If you're able to get to this point, then you have a lot more freedom to do what you want to do. And what you need here is that even if your portfolio generates 3%, which is very, very small annually forever, a 1 million portfolio could give you $30,000, and a 2 million portfolio, $60,000 a year. Those may not be very big numbers by themselves, but you also have to understand after certain points, you also get income from the government via Social Security, and you also get insurance from the government via Medicare. So just giving a sense that if you're able to get to the point of being financially free, where you never have to work again, that is when you want to start focusing all your attention to get to that point as soon as possible so you can live a full life. Most Indian Americans I see and talk to are somewhere between 2 and 3. And the goal is obviously to get to level 4. And level 4 requires, and in my case, people who want to live in both geographies, you need to make sure that you have a level 4 plan for both the countries, both in India as well as in the US. So with that, I'm just going to give you some more background about when you should retire. And before I get to the numbers, retirement, as I said earlier, is not a fixed number. With better healthcare and quality of life, I think most people are going to live a lot longer than what they think. So people who are working in a full-time job, you might see that stopping a full-time work might constitute retirement for you. But people who are doing professional work may not have any particular retirement date per se. And most people I know today who are 60 and above in the US are at least working some jobs, maybe not full-time, but part-time. You could take advisory and part-time work, and you can choose your age rationally. Because you don't need to, you don't want to retire too early or you don't want to retire too late. I've seen people who have retired too early and then decided that they're not able to figure out what to do. So there are quite a few things that happen when you choose to not work full time. So I want to make sure I cover that later on in the presentation, because you want to be careful that if you get into the situation, then it's very difficult to get back to the full time mode. And finally, for people like me who want to live in two countries, hybrid retires have opportunities to work in both countries. I get plenty of consulting work in the US when I come to the US. People are asking for short-term projects, particularly companies now. Many tech companies who are in the 100 million to 500 million range companies are reaching out very regularly, asking how I can help them transform them to an AI company. This is in a big demand. If any of you are looking for consulting work, I'm happy to direct some of the requests I get to you if you would like to do the work. What companies are looking for is that how do I transform my company's operations, my strategy from what I am doing now? And most of these tech companies are basically tech services companies. They operate like the mini version of Accenture, a mini version of Ernst & Young, and mini versions of IBM. They all want to protect their businesses in the new AI world. So they ask, how do I transform that? Since I have run companies in the US, I'm able to help them. But the number of people asking for help now is much more than the number of people who are willing to do the work. So if any of you are really qualified to do that, I'd be very happy to send some of the requests to your side. So you can do that. So a lot of opportunities in the US to do part-time work. Similarly, in India, a lot of companies are also reaching out to see how they can position themselves to offer services or products in the US. Many startups here in India reach out to me regularly saying that they want to know what is the best way to position their product or service in the US. They're willing to pay for the expertise you have here. So I think the bottom line, what I'm trying to say here is that even if you stop full-time work, there is plenty of opportunities to do small consulting engagements, and these engagements produce very good amount of money. It's up to you to decide how much time you want to spend. I have deliberately and consciously limited my time I spend on the consulting work because that is not the most interesting for me right now. I'm more interested in helping people with psychological counseling and things like that. But the work from consulting is always there. Okay. So key decisions before you retire. First is at what age. We talked about that. Where you will live primarily. Are you going to live primarily in the US or India or both? I know some of you would probably have made a decision to live in the US, retire in the US based on your own requirement. Some might have decided to come back here. I feel that this hybrid life in US and India gives the most value. That's what I have seen in my experience so far. You also have to think about the expected monthly expenses. I'll give you some indicative numbers in the next few slides on what it takes to live in India and what it takes to live in the US. Also depends on, do you have any dependents or family obligations? If you have any particular obligation to support your children or support your parents, you need to keep that in mind. And finally, of course, the risk tolerance for investments. You obviously have to be actively investing in your money. You can't just keep the money in income generating funds or fixed income funds, because that won't help you meet inflation. You have to find out and assess your risk tolerance and ensure you invest according to that. The rule that most financial planners tell is keep at least 25 times your annual expenses during the time that you retire. I can tell you that that's not going to be sufficient anymore, because people live a lot longer. Inflation estimates are much higher than what people used to see in the US. Between 1987, which is when I first came to the US, till 2020, I don't think the US inflation ever exceeded 2%. You never even felt inflation. Between 2020 and 2026, I see that the inflation is very perceptible. Inflation is rounding at 4 to 5%, and healthcare inflation and education inflation are running in double digits. Now, education inflation may not be of relevance to us at this age when you're retiring, but healthcare is going to be very relevant. And I can tell you, the cost of healthcare in the US is just incredible. Last trip when I was there, I had to go to the emergency room one day for a very small problem, and I spent about 1.5 hours in an emergency room. They sent me a bill for $6,000, and they didn't treat me. They didn't give any medicine. A doctor also never came and saw me. All they did is do a little bit of measurements and said, "You're doing fine. You're healthy and fine. Please go away." But I got a $6,000 bill on top of that. So healthcare is the biggest risk I see in terms of healthcare costs. Is the biggest risk I see in the US. So this 25x annual expense may not be sufficient anymore. We have to think of something better than that. Okay. The other thing I want to point out is that I've seen a lot of people struggle between planning for retirement versus planning for children's education. I don't want to make it sound like one is important or other. Both are equally important. But the thing that I want you to keep in mind is that retirement should be your number one priority, because There is no one who is going to give you money to retire. No one is going to give you a loan for retirement. For education of children, you can always get a loan. There are various opportunities to get various kinds of financial service in the US for education. So if you had to make a choice between these two, I would say put retirement as a number one priority. Don't neglect your retirement for the purpose of spending education for your children. I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm not trying to be rude here, but children of this generation are very capable of finding their own revenue sources. So if you're able to do plan for retirement and support them, fantastic. But if it comes to a choice, I would say please focus on your retirement, because that's a place where I see people who have spent the money in education and not planned for retirement are struggling in the US right now. And it's very difficult to see them having not very many options other than going back to work at a very late stage in their life. So definitely prioritize your retirement over everything else. Education can also be funded by loans, and you should talk to your children. If you have enough money to do both, great. If you don't, talk to your children about that. And most kids of this generation, I know, because since I'm working with them as part of my counseling, I speak to children at age from 18 to 35. They actually understand the reality better than what we think. There's a general perception that the millennials and Gen Z are lazy, they are entitled, etc. I have to tell you guys that after speaking to them, spending 3 or 4 hours every day for the last 6 years, they have a very different environment they're living in. So it's not a really good idea for us to judge them based on what they display, because their environment, they are growing up is a very different environment. And children of this generation are very confident. So if you want them to take care of education, they very well can. So prioritize your corpus building early. That should be your primary focus. Once you get to a certain point, then you could consider using money for other purposes. So estimating your hybrid time and expenses, I just put these numbers down based on my own experience. And again, it's that these numbers, don't take these numbers as fixed gospel. These are all numbers that I have seen in practice in the last 5 years. The 6 months of time you spend in the US, I have a place to stay there in the US. I have a place there which is my permanent place. It's usually occupied by someone, but whenever I go there, a place is available to me. So even with that, I still have to pay all this necessary costs for homeowner association and property tax and all that. So either you have your own place or you rent a place. I'm estimating in most parts of the United States. For me, it's mostly in Texas. I'm putting a range between $1,500 a month to $3,000 a month. I haven't exceeded $3,000 ever in the last 5 years when I come there on a monthly basis to find a place. In cities, when I go, I don't have a place. I usually have an Airbnb and I rent an Airbnb. Even that, if I do that, the value is somewhere between 1,500 to 3,000. For healthcare right now, since I'm not yet 65, I don't qualify for Medicare, so I'm buying my own insurance, health insurance. Health insurance is very expensive for travelers, and health insurance in the US, even if you subscribe to the Obama plan, is still quite expensive now. My guess is once you reach age 65, Medicare plus Medigap plus the out-of-pocket that comes out of that. Don't worry about those names. I'll tell you what Medigap is, what Medicare is, and what Medicare Advantage is later on in the presentation. But Medicare plus Medigap plus out-of-pocket, I see it come running around $600 to $1,200 a month. This is estimate based on people I know who are at that age who are enjoying Medicare. I get these estimates from them saying that they're spending an average of $600 to $1,200 for a family of 2 people, husband and wife. Food and groceries, of course, depending upon what kind of food you eat and how often you eat out. But anyway, it's somewhere between $600 to $1,000 a month. Utilities and internet, another $3 to $5 a month. Transportation, which includes automobile maintenance, gas, as well as insurance, comes to $400 to $700 a month. And travel, for 2 of us going from here to US once or twice a year, is about $2,000 to $5,000 a year. So during my stay in the US, I see that the average monthly expense, I don't have to pay for children's education. I don't have to pay for any other person's, I don't have to take care of anybody else except the 2 of us, myself and my wife. Our expense is usually between $3,400 to $6,000. Most often it is somewhere in the middle. And with that, we are able to live a fairly easy, comfortable life there in the US. The only thing is that the place to stay we already have, and that helps a lot. I think it's better for you to plan a place to stay. If you don't want to find a place in this, you only want to find a place in India, that's fine. You could always find rentals. If you want to go for 3 or 4 months, every city I'm able to find houses for rent, 2 or 3 bedroom houses for rent you're able to get. It's quite nicely available in Airbnb, other places. Usually it's not more than a couple of $1,000 a month. Any questions?
This Chitrasu here, is it for 2 people or a single?
Two people.
Okay, thank you.
Two people. So all this I'm doing now is based on myself and my wife. We are the ones, we are basically traveling together. We live in India together and live in the US together. We don't usually stay with the children continuously. We do go visit them. We spend time with them. But whenever we go there, we find our own place. And right now in the US, I have a place in Texas. But when I travel to California, when I travel to other parts of the country, I usually rent. And usually monthly rentals run between $2,000 to $3,000 a month. The 6 months I spend in India, we own our own house, own flat here, so we don't pay anything for that. But if you have to rent in places in reasonably good localities in the city of Chennai, for example, you can certainly see rents from up to 40,000, 50,000 a month. 50,000 rupees a month will get you a nice 3-bedroom apartment in a very good part of the city, for example. We have private health insurance here because there is no Medicare coverage here. And at the same time, there is no such thing as Obamacare here. So we have to buy our own private health insurance. It's somewhere between 10 to 20,000, 30,000 a month, depending on the level of coverage you have. Since I started my health insurance in India much earlier, I'm able to stay in the same plan. So I'm able to get a much higher coverage for a much lower premium since I've been a customer for a long time. But if you have to start taking fresh now, if you want to take a HDFC insurance or a Niva Bupa insurance, plan for at least 15,000 to 30,000 for a family of two, for a coverage which could be somewhere around 1 crore a year. The sum assured will be 1 crore. So that 1 crore is a lot of money. Most medical emergencies won't go beyond that. So plan for 15,000 to 30,000 a month. Food and household depends on the kind of food you eat. We mostly make food at home or we order in food at home. I can tell you living in Chennai is a brilliant experience. I get food delivered thrice a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, freshly made, delivered at home thrice a day for a whopping 500 rupees a day for both of us. So that's incredible. The luxury of having someone prepare food, fresh food, and give it to you every single day, delivered at home thrice a day. So those kind of luxuries you can enjoy here. But I would say the food and household, even if you had to eat out regularly, etc., all that, we never seen us exceeding more than 40 grand a month for food and household. Utilities and staff, we do have people. We have persons who come and help us with our house. We have a maid who helps with our house. I don't have a driver because I like to drive. I drive myself. But we also have other staff who come and do cleaning, etc., all that. So 10 to 20,000 is the most you're going to spend on that. Transportation, again, if you own a car, obviously you have to have insurance for the car. You also have to fill petrol. Petrol is very expensive in India. The petrol cost went up by $5 in the last 10 days. So petrol is very expensive here. We don't drive very far. If you have to go very far, then we take a train. But within the city and near the city, we drive and we don't spend much petrol. So on average, it's somewhere between 53,000 to 1,45,000. Our expenses have been mostly less than a lakh for a very good life in Chennai. If it's in Bangalore or in other places, you may have to add at least another 20-30%. Bangalore is very expensive. But if you're going to continue to live in Chennai, then I would say that I don't think you can do any better than 50,000. And I don't think you need to worry about spending any more than a lakh, actually. So 6 months in the US, 6 months in India, if you do that, the combined budget, somewhere between $24,000 to $48,000 is what you are able to, what you would need to live a very good hybrid life. 6 months in US and 6 months in India, all inclusive, including food, insurance, travel, housing, utilities, etc. Okay. Now, this
Vish, one question: that 48,000 per month, you said, is that for a furnished 3-bedroom apartment or
not furnished? Should be a little bit more. Furnished should be more. If you want to get a furnished apartment, then probably you're looking at another 15,000-20,000 more.
Okay.
More than that. Again, it depends on the area. See, if you're looking for an unfurnished apartment, where I live in Mylapore. I live in the heart of Mylapore. I live right next to the last corner. If you are to find an apartment to rent in our neighborhood, even in our own building, it will be somewhere around 60 to 70,000 a month because it's very expensive place. But if you live a little bit far away, a few kilometers away, you can get for 40 to 50,000, right? If you want a very good furnished apartment, if you're willing to go a little bit far, somewhere close to Adyar or beyond Adyar, you get very good furnished apartments for 50-60K. So choice of living is yours where you want to live. And as long as you're able to move around, we choose to live in because we bought our flat in Mylapore when I came here. So we didn't want to go anywhere else. And we like it here because we like the activities here. There's a lot of temples, a lot of cultural things, etc. But if you're not very much into that, you could choose to live a little bit away from the heart of the city and the cost definitely go down, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
The 6 months cost in the US, I'm putting it right now because we are not eligible for Social Security yet. Once Social Security kicks in, I'll have separate discussion on Social Security, but Social Security, even if I start to take next year when I turn 62, I'll be able to get close to $3,000. So if you look at this, if I had to start drawing on Social Security, a good amount of my US expenses will be taken care by Social Security itself. So if you are on Social Security, live part-time in the US, then your overall requirement of money you need goes down dramatically, right? With $3,000 of Social Security, if you look at it, say 3,400 to 6,000 is what I'm estimating a monthly. At $3,000, you're getting 50% of the money from Social Security. All you have to plan for is earning only about $3,000 a month to live in the US for the 6 months, right? In India, of course, you want to keep it separate. I don't like the idea of using money in the US to spend in India or vice versa because of the currency fluctuation. So we are very clear. Our expenses in the US are completely met by income and investment in the US. Our expenses in India are completely met by income and expenses and the investment in India. We keep it totally separate, so you don't have to worry about currency fluctuations or moving money from one country to another, etc. All that. I would say that it's a better way to plan that way. Otherwise, a lot of headache in moving money with all these new regulations the government is bringing in India, where if you transfer more than a certain amount of money, they have to pay tax collected at source and all that. So if you are planning to live a hybrid life, make sure you have the two countries' budgets independently managed with the corresponding income and corresponding investments.
By the way, you don't need to cover this now, but when it comes to Medicare for you, you have some important decisions to make, right?
Yeah.
Whether you
Yeah.
want to be on Part B or not.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's,
I know.
yeah.
I know. Definitely. It's not very easy to decide. I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So the key here, the main thing is that this budget lets work very well as long as you have a place at least in one of the countries. In our case, we chose to have a permanent place in India. We do have a permanent place in Texas, but not all over the country. But definitely, if you are able to get a permanent place in both the countries, it becomes a lot easier to manage this whole thing. So I would say that focus on making sure you have a place to stay that is owned by you, at least in one geography, and preferably in both the geographies. That's the key to making this whole thing work very easily, right?
And when you're not living there, it's mostly vacant, right? You're not
It is
renting
vacant, yes. It is vacant. As I said, the way I have people who are, during some parts of the year, there are people who stay for temporary stay and they take the house and they stay in the house. I don't even collect rent for that. I just want someone to live there and take care of it. But places, times when nobody is there, it's empty. Yeah, it's locked basically. I have a service that goes. There's a service I have there in Texas. They go and clean it up once in 15 days, and I pay them a fixed amount of money for that. But otherwise, the house is locked when you are not there. So life framework. I wanted to use a framework called life. 4 variables that determine your corpus. One is your life expectancy. I think it's safe to say that people should plan for an expectancy of 90 years now. Most people who are going to be reasonably healthy at the 60s have a very high probability of living up to 90. So even if you don't think you're going to make it that way, it's better to plan, because if you do live at 90, you don't want to be running out of money. So plan to age 90 to 100. Your younger spouse may live 5 to 10 years longer. So please make sure the plans are not only based on your life expectancy, it's also based on the life expectancy of your spouse. And if you're going to live in 2 countries like me, 2 health systems, Medicare in the US after you're 65 and private insurance in India. The second factor you want to consider is inflation. I'm giving historic numbers here, right? 3 to 4% general inflation in the US and 5 to 7% medical. In reality, what I have seen in the last 5 years, general inflation in the US is running around 4 to 5%, and medical inflation is running around 12 to 15% actually. It is significantly accelerated in the last 5 years. Post-COVID, the healthcare costs have really gone up much higher. So I would say that these numbers are all based on averages over the last 30, 40 years. If I had to plan from now on, I would definitely look at planning for an inflation about 4 to 6% in the US for general inflation, and at least 10 to 12% for medical inflation. In India, the inflation in the last 25 years since I moved here has always been around 6 to 7%. We haven't seen a lot of change there. Medical inflation, as much as in the US, it's very high here. It has started going up very, very high in India also recently, but it's somewhere in the 10 to 12% range here. The base numbers are small for the same kind of medical treatment, but the inflation is still 10 to 12%. So please plan for that. When you're doing a calculation, make sure you put in these variables for inflation in the US and India. The returns you can expect after retirement from the investments you have. My US portfolio easily does more than 6%. I get nearly 8 to 10% pre-tax and 4 to 6% post-tax from a US portfolio. I have a fairly diversified portfolio in the US, and I'll tell you what all I have when I come to that slide. In India, our portfolio returns much more than 10% actually. Our equity portfolio is returning nearly 20% in the last 5 years. But as long as you're able to get a 6 to 8% post-tax, that's what I would think is reasonable for a longer period of time. So 4 to 6% post-tax in the US, 6 to 8% post-tax in India. These could be the assumptions that safely you can make to do your calculation. Of course, if you have a higher portion of your investment in equity, you're going to get a higher return and you also have a higher risk. The expenses, as we covered in the previous slide, 2 budgets, one for US, one for India, separated. You also had to add in the cost of flying if you're flying between here and there. For two of us, when you fly from here, if you're traveling in economy class, it costs us about $2,000 plus round trip. If you're flying business class, we pay around $5,000 round trip. If you plan well in advance and book your tickets early, you can even get business class for $3,000. We have gotten business class tickets round trip for $3,000 if you plan in advance. You also have to worry about any wire transfer costs if you have to do. OCA renewals are not a concern anymore because the OCA rules have changed now. You don't need to renew. Once you cross 50 and renew once, you're set for life, basically. So know your life LIFE variables in both the countries, two plans working in harmony. Okay. Second thing I would say that what I learned very painfully is that you need to be very clear on your needs versus wants. Certain things are non-negotiable. So you need a place to stay, whether it's own house or rent. Food and groceries, there is no question about that. Healthcare and insurance are a must, are a need. They're not a nice to have, they're a need to have. Clothing and transportation. What is discretionary is travel and vacations, entertainment, gifts and charitable giving, etc. All that. Our monthly expense in India, if you look at it on a month-on-month basis in the last 16 months, is close to 1.5 lakhs actually. That's because our discretionary expenses is actually higher than our need. We spend a lot more money on gifts and charitable giving. We have quite a lot of club memberships, etc. All that. So if I look at my actual monthly living expense, the time when I live in India, the 6 months I live in India, it's actually close to 1.5 lakhs. But if I look at the need part of it, is probably not more than 70, 80,000. So you got to make sure that you separate them out because you don't want to make plans without finding the difference there, because you can always choose to cut back on some of the discretionary expenses if necessary. Okay. Other thing I want to tell you is the power of starting early. Compound interest is really the eighth wonder of the world. I can tell you that if you have to invest $2,000 a year from age 18 to 27 and then stop, don't invest anymore, you'll end up with $361,000 during retirement. If you do the same $2,000 a year between 31 to 65 and invest for 37 years, the amount you'll have is less than what you had if you had invested early. So starting early has a very significantly oversized advantage. So those of you who are in your 30s or 40s, I would say that never delay any further. Start it today. Whatever you can save towards your retirement, start it today, because the power of compounding is just unbelievable, right? So for us, when we moved back from US to India, I was 39 years old. So I realized I had to plan for it. So we started doing all that when I was 39. I wish I had done it even earlier than that. I only started matching my 401k when I was 35 years old, because until then I was still paying out my educational loans that I taken when I went to the US, etc. All that, and we came from a very, very low middle class income family, so I didn't have any wealth to do. So, but somebody had told me at the time, despite all that, if you had still put money away in 401k early enough, I would have made a lot more than that. So people who have the opportunity now, please try and max out your 401k as soon as possible. That's free money, gross tax-free also, right? So the power of starting early is very, very important. You need to understand that. This is particularly significant when you're talking about retirement income return planning, because you have a long period of time to accumulate the money using compound interest. Okay. So key questions that every one of us, hybrid retiree or a retiree in US, need to ask is that what will your annual US-India calendar look like? Which months in each country? If you're choosing to be in the non-resident India status, there is a rule in India that if you're going to spend more than 182 days in a financial year, then you qualify, you become a resident for tax purposes. If you're a resident for tax purposes in India, then you have to pay tax on global income in India. You have to pay tax on global income in the US anyway, but if you stay more than 182 days in India in any calendar year, in any financial year, you have to pay tax on global income in India also. So for me, I chosen to live here, so I end up spending more than 180 days in India. So I'm actually a tax resident of India, which means I'm paying tax on global income in India. I also pay tax on global income in the US. But because we have a double taxation avoidance agreement between the US and India, I take all my income I generate from India, I show in India and pay tax there. And I show the same income in the US, but I take a tax credit, foreign tax credit for that. Similarly, for all my income in the US, I pay tax in the US. and I show that income in India, but I get a tax rebate in India for that. So by doing these two, making sure that you show the income separately and showing the respective tax being paid in the respective country of origin of the income, you can balance this very well. At the end of the day, sometimes because of various thresholds, I end up paying a little bit more than once, but most of the time, the tax paid in one country is offset by credits in the other country. So what will your annual calendar look like? For those of you who choose to live a longer duration in the US, make sure you don't stay more than 180 days in India. Otherwise, you'll become a resident, in which case your tax obligations increase quite dramatically. You also want to make sure that how long will your corpus last in both countries? Instead, have a separate corpus for US, separate corpus for India. Planning for 30 to 35 years is the best idea. And of course, you can use the numbers that I had, 6 to 7% inflation in India versus 4 to 6% in the US. Definitely health insurance in both countries. Medicare is necessary if you are over 65. Otherwise, have some sort of a private health insurance in the US, and definitely have insurance in India. And both should run concurrently for all 12 months, even though you're not going to be using for all 12 months. Definitely better idea to have property at least in one country or ideally in both the countries. Currency transfers, for those who are living in the US who want to be a resident of the US and not a resident of India, then you can use NRE, NRO accounts. I have a resident account because I live here. I'm a resident here. So I have a resident account, regular account like anybody has here. When necessary to transfer money, I normally use Remitly or Wise. Both of them do very good work. Both of them provide very good service and also transfer the money very quickly. But the only transfers I do only when I have a particular expense in US that I'm not covering with the US income. It doesn't happen very often because since I'm maintaining separate budgets for both countries, very rarely I have to transfer money from one place to another place. But if and when it's required, we can use these services to transfer money. And as the tax obligation, as a US citizen or a US green card holder, you are required to pay taxes on global income every year, regardless of where you live. As far as India is concerned, as long as you live less than 180 days, you're considered a non-resident, in which case you don't have to pay tax on income earned elsewhere. And so definitely what I would say is that you need to make sure you have a plan for someone to take care of your affairs when you're in another country. So in India, it's very easy. When we don't live here, when you go to the US for 6 months, I have someone who comes and takes care of the house at least on a weekly basis, comes and does the cleaning, etc., all that. Similarly, I have one service in the US which does it in Texas, where they come once a day. So you need to make sure that you have a plan for someone to take care of that, because if you don't take care of anything for 5-6 months, you will have problems when you come back, because plumbing, electricity, all of them starts giving trouble. So you definitely want to have someone to take care of the infrastructure when you're not there. And I'm happy to give you references on how to do this in case you want help, either in the US or in India. Life expectancy and longevity risk. Life expectancy is rising, as I said. You definitely should plan for a corpus to last until your age 80 for both yourself and your spouse. Critical illness risk obviously increases with age. So when you're planning your healthcare costs, please make sure that you consider that cost. The later years are going to have a higher proportion of healthcare costs than earlier years. You need to make sure you explicitly factor that in your modeling. Medical care costs, this is what my experience is. In the US, at this age less than 70, average is about 15 to 20K per year for medical costs, which includes both insurance as well as any out-of-pockets. As you go a little higher in age, I see friends of mine who are in the 70s saying that they're spending somewhere between 25 to 35,000 for medical costs. And as you get even older, it gets higher. In India, fortunately, we both keep ourselves reasonably healthy and take care of ourselves. So our expenses for healthcare beyond the premium we are paying is about 2 to 4 lakhs. The one difference is that India doesn't have insurance for regular primary care. Insurance in India only pays for hospitalization. There is no coverage for regular services or screening, etc., all that. But 2 to 4 lakhs is what, including insurance, what we pay for ourselves. As we get older, I'm assuming based on the estimates I'm seeing now, it will be somewhere between 8 to 15 lakhs at the age from 75 to 80. But what I would say is that by living in both countries, we are able to significantly lower our cost of healthcare, because the 6 months we live here, we do all the stuff that we want to get done, any dental work, any vision work, or any other thing you want to do, we all get it done in India because it's much, much cheaper to do that here. The simple thing is that just to get your teeth cleaned, the cost of doing that in India also there is just phenomenally different. So plan for your spouse's longevity too, because not only for your life, you have to think about your spouse's life also. So think for a plan of 90 years for both, which means your spouse might be living longer than you after you leave. So make sure the timing for the calculation of the corpus assumes that both of you are going to live until 90. Okay. So based on statistics, I just picked it up from the US data sets. It says that if you are a 65-year-old person who's living at this time has a 50% chance of living at least until 80, and the same person has a 20% of living at 90 and a 10% chance of living until 95. This is based on the latest US statistics, based on census, etc. All that. It's interesting because you're saying that if you're 65 years old today, starting to get Medicare, it's a 50% chance you live at least until 80. So clearly you want to plan for something more than 80, right? That's why I'm saying 90 might be a good number to plan in terms of longevity for your planning purposes and calculation purposes. So plan for a 25 to 30 years, assuming you're going to retire around 60, 65, plan for at least 25 to 30 years. Definitely plan the healthcare costs, factoring in the inflation of healthcare, and also factor in the increased inflation nowadays in general cost of living as well. Okay. So putting all this together, a real example, I took it as my example. If you are age 50 right now, for example, 15 years of retirement, let's say based on the calculation I showed you earlier, $4,000 a month for the 6 months you spend in the US, and $80,000 rupees a month for the 6 months you live in India, all comes to about $30,000 per year of total annual spend. Assuming a 6% post-tax return on the investment, both in US and India, and assuming you want to live until 90 years old, what it says that you need to have a minimum of $1.2 million of corpus in the US and a 50 lakh corpus in India to have a reasonably good coverage for all your needs at the very minimum. I think the desired number would be about $1.8 million of corpus in the US and about 75 lakhs in India. And ideally, you want to have something more than that. Interestingly, all the surveys done in the US nowadays saying that what does it cost to retire in the US, somehow they come up with the 1.5 million number. I'm not quite sure what assumptions go into that, but for a lifestyle that we are living, Indian Americans are living, which is, I think, a slightly better lifestyle than an average median lifestyle of an American person, I think these numbers make more sense. And I would say that definitely shoot for the desired number at least, if not the ideal number. But then again, understand here, these spends and all these numbers targets are based on not counting Social Security. When I factor in Social Security, then my expense in the US goes down. For the 6 months you're going to spend in the US, once I start drawing Social Security, more than half my monthly expense will be covered by Social Security. So my corpus will definitely come down. I'm expecting that once Social Security kicks in, my desired corpus will come from 1.8 million to probably more like 1.2 or 1.3 million, which I think is very reasonable to achieve. If you start, even when you're starting in your late 30s or early 40s, it's very, very possible to achieve this number, but you have to do it consistent. Any questions on this so far? Okay. So this is the quick reference one. I just put a table together saying that if you have a modest lifestyle, a comfortable lifestyle, or affluent lifestyle, or a luxury lifestyle, you could start with 800,000 US corpus and go up to 3 million. India corpus can start at 40 and go up to 2 crore. If you're wanting to live a luxury life is a true luxury. If you have $3 million corpus in the US and about 2 crore in India, you can live a life where you can easily spend $80,000 a year. And if 6 months of that you're going to spend in India, you have plenty of money to spend in both places. And this particular table is assuming retirement at 65, a life expectancy of 90 years, US inflation of 3%, India inflation of 6%, US portfolio return of 6 to 7%, pre-tax, pre-retirement, and 5% post-retirement. Assuming Social Security is only claimed at age 67, the full retirement age. And most importantly, you have property in both countries. Under these assumptions, which are all assumptions we have made reasonably close to what reality is, the table on the left-hand side gives you a general idea of what you need. I hope I'm not scaring anybody here with these numbers, but these are real numbers, people. I'm putting numbers based on real experience and real knowledge and real lived experience. So please plan around these numbers.
So Vish, I might have missed that. What's your healthcare situation in US? You buy your own private insurance here or just live by travelers?
No, right now I'm doing my travel. My stay in the US is between 4 to 5 months. So I buy travelers insurance from India.
Okay.
And travelers insurance from India has its own pluses and minuses. It's cheaper, but the claims aren't extremely successful all the time. Instead, I would say that it's better to buy insurance of temporary visitor insurance in the US. It costs more. Just to give you a sense of proportion, for two of us, both myself and my wife, when we come to the US for a 4 months visit to the US, our travel insurance costs us about 60,000 rupees. If I had to buy the same insurance in the US from one of the US providers, it will be at least $3,000. So significantly higher premium there. The one big advantage of taking insurance in the US for this 4-month stay is that it is cashless. You can go to any hospital anywhere in the city, in the country, and you'll be covered immediately. Whereas the insurance I have here, I have to pay and I get reimbursed when I come back and make a claim. Claims are generally successful. I won't say it's not successful, but there are a lot of questions there. They'll try and find ways to not give you money, and you have to keep answering the questions and do it. But eventually, most companies in India reimburse your charges. So right now, we're using insurance from India for the last few years. I'm thinking that at some point I want to start buying from the US to make it easy for cashless. After 65, when you start getting Medicare and Medicare and Medicare Advantage, then that problem goes away.
Right. And you said 3,000 a month for two of you, or
Not for month, for 4 months.
4 months. Okay, that's not too bad.
4 months. 4 months. Yeah. Again, that depends upon any pre-existing condition, etc. We are giving a pretty clean sheet to the insurance company, so they really shouldn't have any problem giving us insurance. But still, they look at your age and then tell you that you're a high risk, right? Whereas here in India, it's about 60,000 is what we pay for 4 months of insurance for both of us. And our coverage is, we get a coverage of close to $1 million of sum assured, plus various things like dental, etc., all that. Okay.
So the only question from your lifestyle, I mean, I don't know if you want to cover such questions at the end of it after you finish your thing.
Anytime you can ask the question, no problem.
So in general, the planning works when you have a fixed schedule of living here and living there. So I don't mean to ask bluntly, but what makes you come to US? Like, is there a specific event or specific calendar months?
No, not really. You see, we have, it's very simple. For us, both my daughters are living in the US. So we obviously want to spend some time with them. And so we go there to hang out with them and spend, because they can't come here for more than 2 weeks at a time because both are working, the husbands are working. So we end up spending there because we could afford to go there. And we also want to spend time there with them. As I said, I also do a lot of work in the US, a lot of consulting work in the US. For example, the last trip, the company I'm doing consulting paid for my travel to the US. They want me to come to the US and spend some time with them to do the thing. So I said, okay, fine. If I'm going to come for your work, I'll also stay extra months and hang out with my children also. But every year I'm there at least for 4 to 5 months. And most often it is partly for work and partly to just stay with the family.
Okay.
And my daughters one of them lives in Texas, one lives in California. So we end up coming to both the places. That is why you see me mostly hanging around the Bay Area during some parts of the year and Texas in some parts of the year. So combination of work as well as for living with the family.
Very good. Good to know. By the way, the funny thing that's starting to happen, this is more sociological. So a couple of my friends said, I think they're in the California area. So they've been living here, 65. And so others are asking, are you coming here to visit your sons or daughters? They see them like in public places. So we're coming up with some good answers for that one. So
Exactly. So I think in our case, mentally, at least I feel like I'm visiting in the US and living in India. Mentally, I would like to believe that because I spend more time here. I spend more than 6 months in India and less than 6 months in the US out of choice. So if somebody asks me, where do you live? Even though I'm not able to answer the question quickly, very easily, I say, I think I live in India and I visit the US.
Right. But the people who are asking that question, they have a different mental model that you're living in India. You're elderly people just coming to visit for a few weeks in US. That's how they think most of the so-called the 60 plus people they see.
Correct. Here. I agree. In fact, when I come there, I'll tell you, when I come there and visit people assume that I came there to visit my children, and they like, how come you're driving here? How come you have a license here? How come you're not worrying about going? So when we come there, I have my car is still there actually. By the way, I haven't sold my car. My car is still there. My daughter uses my car when I'm not there. So when I come to the US, I reclaim the car. So I have transports. I have a license. I have bank accounts there, I have a credit card there, and I have a place to stay there. So really, it's like I become part of the residency there immediately. But people assume you don't have all that. They are surprised when they find out that you're driving yourself, you're going to places yourself, etc. That's what I'm telling you guys. This hybrid life has a lot of advantages. You get the best of both worlds. You get to see what happens in the US and enjoy the stuff that is very good in the US. You also get to do the best things here. So my recommendation to all of you would be, definitely consider a hybrid life as to the extent possible. Unless there is some compelling event that makes you not able to leverage that, hybrid life really has its advantages. We really can tell you that our experience has been very, very good. Okay, anyway, continuing on, entire retirement debt-free, very important. A lot of people end up having a lot of debts in their retirement. I think it's very, very good idea to get rid of all your debts before you start considering becoming a retired person. So clear all the liabilities, pay all the outstanding loans, etc. Don't plan for any monthly payment beyond the time when you're not going to work full time. Liquidate all the assets to clear debt. If you have something to debt, just liquidate and clear that. Education loan for children, please, as I told you very early, prioritize yourself first. If you're able to still support them, great. Otherwise, make sure that you don't commit yourself for something that you're not going to be able to fulfill, because the cost of education in the US is outrageous. It is really outrageous. And 4-year education in most schools, even if it's a state school, runs in 6 figures. So it is definitely something you have to worry about. And also avoid any unaffordable commitments. I know people sometimes want to have very fancy celebrations, etc. It's up to them, people's own choice to do that. But I see that the value for doing this doesn't add up. So I would say resist the social pressure for lavish weddings, the large gifts. Instead, focus on yourself to make yourself risk-free. Okay. Where will you call home? The hybrid answer. So 6 months in the US and 6 months in India, what I say. Typically, April to September, we end up spending most of the time between May and July. May and August is where we stay in the US. This year, I came early. I came in February and left in May. Usually, we come around April, May, and then leave on August time. The reason for that is that we have a lot of commitments in the later half of the year, spiritual commitments in India. Myself and my wife, we both walk to Tirupati from Chennai every year in October. 160 kilometers of walking from Chennai to Tirupati every single year, and then climb the hill to go and see God there. So that's something that we have done for the last 10 years. So we normally plan to be back home in India by latest by mid-September. So September till March, we don't come to the US. A lot of things happen here for us. A lot of family connections are there. The famed Chennai music season happens in December and January here. We're very much into that, enjoying the music and stuff here. The entire atmosphere in India between October to January is very festive. There are a lot of big festivals. The weather is generally nice. There are a lot of activities going on here. So our schedule happens to be 4 to 5 months between April and August in the US, and the next 6 to 7 months in India. Again, depends upon your particular situation, but I would say that this is probably a very good way to plan your time in India as well as in the US. The logistics make it very well. If you're a US citizen, or if you're a green card, or if you're a US citizen, you can get an OCA card, which allows you to come and stay in India however long you want. Maintain a US address. I maintain my US address for all my banking and taxes. When I start taking Medicare, I'll have address in the US as well. For India, I have a regular resident account, but people who are NRIs use NRO account here. We file taxes in both places, etc. All that. So this would be a best way to plan your hybrid life. So key decision: secure your US home first, secure your India home, both very important. Plan your annual calendar and when you're going to say. Typically, people who have children and grandchildren, most of the schools in the US are off from May till July, right? So you want to be there at that time if your grandchildren are going to be out of school. You definitely want to be back home in India for the festival season, which starts from September till January, and you can build this plan so that you don't stay more than 180 days in India to avoid this non-resident rule here. Setting up dual banking, have a separate account in US, checking savings account for all the expenditure in the US, and have a separate account for India to spend money in India. Maintain a US mailing address plus a current OCA card. And for those who want to have the flexibility of making investment decisions, you can have a power of attorney in both countries. I have given power of attorney for certain things in the US to my daughters, so they can sign on my behalf on certain things. And similarly, I have a power of attorney to my relatives here in India. They can sign on behalf based on my condition. This is for convenience, because it is something that needs to be done and signature is required. Then passing the information, couriering it back and forth is a problem. So what I done is I established limited power of attorney for certain things, both in the US and India, so that I don't physically need to be there every single time for certain decisions. This is something that I think people should consider doing. It's very important. You don't want to give a complete power to everything, but at least have certain limited power of attorney given to avoid delays in signatures and decision making, etc. Housing options. When you do retire, housing options, independent living at home, obviously the best answer, where you're living by yourself, you have all the autonomy in the world, privacy and comfort. I can tell you that the number of people opting to go to old age homes in India is growing, simply because there are no options available. But at the same time, I can tell you, people who do go to the old age homes often don't enjoy very much. In fact, the business I'm running, where I'm taking care of senior citizens at home, majority of my clients are people who had opted to go to an old age home and decided not to stay there and want to come back to their own home. So they find that their environment and what they see in an old age home is not always positive. So before you decide what you're going to do, think about the pros and cons. If somebody wants to have some information about the pros and cons about independent living or assisted living or old age homes, whether in US and India, I've done enough thinking and research about that. I'm happy to help you, walk you through the options and the pluses and minuses. Old age home works brilliantly well for some people. People who are generally out and about, extroverts, who want to have enjoy new connections, old age homes work very brilliantly. You have a lot of people of the same age group, you can enjoy living together, etc. But it's not for people who are not of that type, right? And secondly, old age homes in India have a very regimental schedule. So you have to follow the schedule that they have, and you can't have too much flexibility around it. In the US, assisted living is a good concept, but I see that the cost of assisted living is just growing up very high. Recent estimates are somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000 a month in most places in the US, which is significantly a high amount of money unless you are able to cover it yourself. So think about all the options, independent living at home. My general advice is that as you grow much older, towards the very later part of life, it's probably a good idea to come to India. Your money can go a very long way in purchasing services for that kind of situation in India better than the US. I have seen this for people who are chosen to live there. I see people who are living here also, and I find that people who have chosen to retire in India in their later stage, I'm talking about post 75 and 80 years old, people who have chosen to retire in India seem to have a much better situation than people living in the US. The other next item is 401k, IRA, and Roth IRA. I think a lot of you might know about this. I just put a little table here. Contributions in 2024, which has gone up in 2025 after the new bill that came in the Congress and Senate. I think it's 23,000. I went to 25,000, I believe, in 401k. Traditional IRA is 7,000. Tax on contribution for 401k is pre-tax and IRA is pre-tax, but Roth IRA is after tax. Tax and withdrawal in both 401k and traditional IRA is taxed as ordinary income, whereas Roth IRA is free. The bigger thing I want to point out is the required minimum distribution. With 401k and traditional IRA, you are required to start withdrawing a minimum amount of money every year after age 73 for 401k and traditional IRA, whereas Roth IRA doesn't have that. So it's generally a good idea to convert your 401k and traditional IRA into a Roth IRA sometime between 60 and 70 years old, a time when you're likely to be exiting full-time employment, time when you're not going to have the same kind of income. Converting from traditional IRA and 401k to Roth IRA at those years will attract less of taxes, but the very big advantage is that Roth IRA doesn't have a required minimum distribution, and money in the Roth IRA is also tax-free. The return is also tax-free. So if you are someone with significant amount of money, I would say this planning from going from 401k and traditional IRA to Roth IRA should be done carefully and as early as possible in your early 60s. I've seen people who have not done that end up paying tremendous amount of tax in their 70s when they start to take money out of 401k traditional IRA. And the amount of taxes you're talking about is very high. I've seen people pay 26-27% tax, marginal tax on their 401k and IRA because they decided to take it very late. So this migration from 401k and traditional IRA to Roth IRA, I would advise people to start thinking about it. Take the help of financial planners who can help you plan out what happens when you take at different points. But definitely it's worthwhile to consider taking money out of 401k and traditional IRA as early in your 60s as possible, so you can avoid this required minimum distribution. Okay? So timing is everything for all your retirement withdrawals. So age 59 and a half is when you start becoming eligible for taking money out of 401k and IRA accounts. All of you know that. At age 62 is when the earliest you can claim Social Security. If you do claim Social Security at 62, as opposed to 67, which is the full retirement age, the money you get in age 62 is 30% less than what you would get at age 67. So unless you have incredibly compelling need to start taking Social Security early, I would say waiting longer gives you a better amount of money. But here is the trick. Taking at 62 means you get payment immediately. So if you look at the money flow over a period of time, the break-even point of whether to take at 62 or take at 67 for most people is around age 79, which means if you start taking money from Social Security earlier, let's say at age 62, you are better off until you reach age 79. After 79, if you're chosen to take it later, you get more payment. So you really decide what is your objective in life. If you don't need to count on this Social Security money, you really don't need it, then there's no reason to take it early because you could get less from the government. But the break-even point is at 80. So some people claim that why not take the money at 62 and I can do a better investment on that money and get a better return on that. Yes, very possible. If you're able to do that, then the break even between taking at 62 and later goes to more than 80 years. So my plan is not to wait until 67. I don't want to start at 62. I want to take somewhere in between. I want to take advantage of the benefit of investing the money for better return. At the same time, I don't want to take a much bigger hit also. So think about it in your case. 62 is the earliest you can take. 67 is when your full retirement age is. And at 65 is when you start becoming eligible for Medicare. It's very important to know one thing. If you do not enroll in Medicare at 65, if you do not do that, there is a huge penalty to enroll later on. So whether you want it or not want it, I think everyone should definitely plan to enroll in Medicare when they hit 65. If you don't do that, as I said, if you're going to enroll later on, the penalty for late enrollment is ridiculously high, right? So age 65 for Medicare, age 67 for full retirement of Social Security benefits, age 70 is when you get the maximum Social Security benefit if you're able to wait that long. At 73 is when you have to start taking money out of your 401k and IRA. Okay. Yes. Question?
Yeah, Vish. One question. So you said Medicare eligibility is 65. Is it the year you are turning 65 or 1 year? Like
you can enroll. I think the enrollment has to start to go through the paperwork and get fully enrolled. I think it takes about 4 months. So I think what the government says is that you can start applying and doing all the paperwork 4 months before you turn 65.
All right, thank you.
4 or 5 months before. That's what they recommend. 4 or 5 months before you turn 65, you want to do. It's a lot of paperwork you have to do for that. You have to physically go there to the office to sign some forms, etc. So those of us who are living hybrid life, you have to make sure that we plan to be in the US around that time so we can actually take care of all the paperwork. You can't do it early, you can't do it late. So you have to plan to be there at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next slide. Okay. In terms of investment, should I invest in stocks or bonds? I did some research on that to see what does it mean to have all the money in equity. This is all completely US-based numbers. I took the information from Ibbotsen's index. Ibbotsen's is someone data set that tracks the stock market performance since 1926, and they track it every single year. So if you have your money in 100% equity, you can expect over a period of 30 years, 11.1% return on investments. If you have 70% equity, 30% bonds, it drops to 9.4, etc. All that. So over 30 years, this is what you see. So depending upon your risk tolerance and depending on your need for return, you can choose what on. I think for most people who are at this stage of life, 100% equity doesn't make sense. 100% bond doesn't make sense. It's somewhere in between those 2 points, 70-30 or 50-50. The most conservative investors do 50-50, which means you expect 8.3% return on your retirement investments, which after tax will probably be around 6 to 7%, which is what we are targeting in our corpus calculation, if you remember. So I would say 50% bond, 50% equity is what would be a good mix. And a lot of very low cost index funds are available in the US, or ETFs are available, which can give you the same kind of return we're talking about without spending too much research on that. Index funds are the best things available to human beings, I think. So without thinking about it, you can put a nice index funds, S&P index or other index, and there are also some very good bond index funds as well. So long run data, 1926-16 says that large cap stocks deliver 10% geometric mean versus a 5.5 for bonds. So even though stocks are riskier than bonds, the risk premium, the return to risk premium is about 5%. And because inflation is increasing continuously, I think it's no longer a luxury. I think it's a necessity to make sure at least part of your money is in equity. That's why I said 50% equity, 50% bond might be a very good mix to avoid too much risk at the same time enjoy a decent return. So focus on total return, not just dividend income, because a lot of financial planners advise you to look at dividend producing stocks. Not necessarily a bad idea, but dividend is not going to beat inflation. So you really want to have some money in the market, it's equity funds, which generate more return than a bond fund or a dividend income fund. Okay, safe withdrawal rate. And I think if you look at any retirement website, retirement magazine, or retirement advisor, they'll all give you this 4% magic number. Somehow they invented several years ago. 4% number makes sense for most of the people. But I would say that you have to really look at to see what your condition is, to see if you want to take less or more. Less the better. I think anything more than 6% of withdrawal would definitely add a significant amount of risk to your portfolio, unless you have a very large corpus. I think somewhere between 3 and 4 is what I think would be the right number based on your particular scenario. If you look at the 4% rule, if you have $1 million portfolio, you get about $40,000 a month, a year, sorry. So if you're living a hybrid life, that's more than plenty, because in addition to that, you also have Social Security. So if you do a 4% rule, you have 1 million portfolio, you're good to live in the US for 6 months. You need to have the money in India to live the India life. Similarly, you have 2 million, 3 million, etc. All that. With inflation also, if you have a portfolio which is going to be at least 2 million, for example, in this case, 80K is plenty of money to live in most parts of the US. For a normal life, for a normal average Indian life, it's definitely very, very sufficient. So withdrawing too much more than what you need definitely makes the problem worse. The significant problem here is that the sequence of return risk. Let's assume that you are going to retire at 60 or 62 and you have the right amount of corpus, but for some reason, if the market were to really go down a lot right after you retire, then your corpus depletes immediately. And to recover the corpus, so if you see here, if your portfolio is down 20% right after you retire, and you have a 10% withdrawal, you need to gain 39% to recover. So the problem is the sequence of return risk. You want to make sure that your withdrawals are not very high, because at any point, if you're going to have a downturn in the markets, you want to be able to recover very fast, for which you want to make sure you limit your withdrawals to be less than 4 or 3%. So I would say don't ever plan to take more than 5%. If you are going to be less than 5%, then the risk of depletion is generally very low. And of course, think about total return, not just dividend income, not only the dividend income. Think about capital gains and dividends. Total return is what is important to focus on, not the dividend income only. Okay. So in terms of income sources, potentially people can consider. I mean, this could vary from person to person. For me, at least, I see that I'm hoping to get Social Security when I hit 62. I still have my 401k and IRA and Roth IRA in the US. I don't have a rental income there. I do get dividends from US companies. I do part-time consulting in the US. I don't have annuities. I don't believe in annuities. I don't have annuities, but some people prefer to have annuities. I think annuity makes sense people who don't have the ability to look for good investment vehicles. If you're not having time to think about investments, or if you're not very good at consistently saving money, then annuity might be a good idea. But I don't buy annuities because it's very expensive, it's very complex, and generally doesn't do very well for me. So in my case, it is Social Security, 401k, IRA, dividends, and part-time consulting. In India, we have money in fixed deposits. Fixed deposits in India give a very good return, particularly if you're looking at non-banking financial companies, what they call NBFC. Non-banking financial companies usually give you about 8 to 9% interest with a principal protection. And SCSS is a senior citizen savings scheme issued by the government of India, guaranteed 8.2% return today. And they have always maintained income return of 8% or more for the last 20 years. So 8.2% return in a senior citizen savings scheme underwritten by the government of India. Similarly, you have post office schemes, monthly investment schemes, which also give you a good return. Mutual funds in India, as I told you, in the last 25 years I lived here, I have got a return on average of about 12%. On average across the last 25 years. It has gone up to 30-40% certain years and gone to negative few years. But if you look at the overall period of 25 years, you're able to easily enjoy 12% or more in mutual funds in India. I don't have rental income in India. I do get dividends in India. So the kind of income sources you want to make sure you have an idea, visibility into, so that you can plan your retirement corpus based on that. Yes. Sridhar?
Yes. First, Visha, thank you so much for putting all of this. This is awesome to make us think about things. So one thing I wanted to caution people is that for anyone who's thinking about dual taxation between India and US, yes, definitely there's a tax treaty that is good. But the mutual fund investments in India can become a bit of a tax nightmare in the US. So that's something to just throw some caution.
100% I agree. I was going to say, coming later on in the thing, the way it works is that mutual fund investments, as a US citizen or a US green card holder, when you invest in mutual funds in India, US taxation considers that as a PFIC, passive foreign investment company. A passive foreign investment company taxation in the US is they charge you the taxation on capital gains is 40%. Is 40%. You have to pay 40% tax. So the way to work around it is that you should try and avoid investing in mutual funds in India for equity. Instead, you should go to things like PMS or PIS. PMS is portfolio management schemes and PIS is portfolio investment schemes. If you're an NRI, you cannot put money in PMS. You have to put in a portfolio investment scheme, for which you have to have an NRO, NRE account. And then you can invest in Indian stock market through a broker who can set up the PIS scheme. In that case, it is not considered PFIC, it's considered as a regular investment where your taxation is the usual taxation in the US. But if you're going to put in mutual fund, particularly mutual funds of US companies, US government knows, they have information saying that you have money in the mutual fund. They will expect you to pay capital gains and at 40%. So it's a good point. Definitely a good point. I had a lot of money in mutual funds for a long time. And when I discovered this problem, I started migrating all that stuff. Now, almost all of my equity investment in India are either in PMS or in other investments. I don't have very much in mutual funds anymore.
Or direct equity is also fine.
Yes, you can directly participate in the market through one of those trading online trading accounts as well. Correct. Yeah. But
Thanks,
that's
Vish.
online trading is only do if you have time to look at which community. This PMS and PIS things operate much like mutual funds, where the fund managers are going to invest on your behalf, and you can give them instructions on what kind of risk reward tolerance you have. The PMS schemes, I'm talking about the portfolio management schemes, they collect a portfolio fee. So you have to pay a fixed fee every year to the person who's managing your fund. But some of those funds that I have, they have a scheme where they don't take any fee until hit a minimum threshold return. So for example, the one I have with Care PMS in India right now, they don't take any fee until they hit 10% return on the particular year. Only after they hit 10%, they start collecting their fee. And the fee they collect is a risk reward. They share 40% of any upside along with me. I get 60%, they get 40%. So on a very good year, they make a lot of money out of me. On average years, they don't make any money at all. So that's the beauty of PMS schemes, where you can set up your incentive scheme for the broker to be based on the return. So if any of you want any information on PMS, PIS, I'm happy to help you, because it's a fairly not so easy topic to understand, but it's a very important topic if you choose to live in India. Okay, thanks. Next slide. So building your portfolio, what I would say is that if you go for the India portion of your life, NRE fixed deposits is a good one. Usually you get about 6.5 to 7.5% in tax-free interest in India. Fully repatriable, it is safe, and it's liquid. You can take it anytime you want. Or you can do the SCSS, Senior Citizen Savings Scheme, which is about 8.2% guaranteed, underwritten by the government of India, and they pay quarterly interest. The Post Office Monthly Income Scheme provides about 7.4% per annum right now, as of now. Also a very good scheme. You can definitely take money out of that. And the Indian equity mutual funds, or the PMSs I'm talking about, give you a 12 to 14% return. Most of them are, most of the index funds are funds that track the index, give you 12 to 14% return. Yes, sir. Narayanan, you have a question?
Thanks, Vish. Can we get SCSS even if you are a US citizen or something? You have to be an Indian citizen.
You have to be a resident, not a citizen, resident.
Okay.
You have to be a resident.
At least for tax purposes, you should be taxed in India. Then only you can get it.
Correct. You have to be a tax resident of India. Correct.
Thanks, Vish.
So what I would suggest as a portfolio, if you want to allocate for India, is that have a bit of money in SCSS, Senior Citizen Savings Scheme, put some money in Post Office Monthly Investment Scheme, NRE FDs, put some money in Indian equity mutual funds, or actually if you're a US citizen, put it in Indian portfolio management systems. You can have money in sovereign gold bonds. Excellent investment. I have money in sovereign gold bonds. Sovereign gold bonds are bonds issued by the Reserve Bank of India. What they do is they allow you to purchase bonds, and they assign you a certain amount of gold at the time when you purchase the bonds. And these bonds have to be held for 7 years. And during the 7 years you're holding the bonds, the government pays 2.5% tax-free interest on the money you put there. And after the 5th year of the 7 years, if you were to sell the bond, then you don't have to pay tax on the capital gains. And the value you get at the end of the year is the value of gold at the time. So I invested in sovereign gold bonds in 2018. My bonds actually are coming for renewal now. The appreciation is nearly 400%. So I think it's definitely, if you're going to consider any investment in India, surely consider sovereign gold bonds as one of the possibilities. The government is not going to be offering this anymore. Whatever they're offering now is probably the last tranche. They're not going to offer anymore. If there's a chance to get that, I would advise people to get this, because sovereign gold bonds are a really good hedge, good return on investment, and very tax efficient. Okay, so think about that. So stable
Is that
income
only for Indian tax residents, or?
I don't think so. I think anybody can get it. I don't think anybody. I don't think any limitation on that. There's no limitation.
Okay.
As far as I know, there's no limitation on that. Okay. Again, stocks versus bonds. Again, I tried to pull some information from what is available both in the US and India. In a 5-year rolling periods, if you see, 100% equity gives you a 10% return with the 8.6% volatility, etc. And if you look at 30-year periods, so the last 5-year period in the US has been very bullish. market has done very, very well in the last 5 years. If you look at last 30 years also, it's still a good story actually if you look at it. Now, will this continue in the next future? We can't tell for sure, but the chances are that things might change, but will they change dramatically from the history? I don't think so. I think these numbers could very well be used as a basis for you to plan your portfolio. You may want to maybe give a little bit of a cushion and reduce the return expectations a little bit going forward because of all the uncertainties and volatilities, etc. But still, I think the numbers that you put here are very good indications of what you should use for when you're calculating your return on investment. So top side gives the US type return, and the bottom part of the slide gives you the India returns. As told you, 10-year CAGR for Nifty 50 is 14%, and 20-year CAGR is 15%. Indian market, particularly for this Nifty 50 index, has done extremely well. In fact, 90% of mutual funds in India could not beat Nifty. So I wouldn't even worry about going to any of these mutual funds and wasting a time. Just put it in an index fund in India. You're good to go. If you choose to go to this portfolio management schemes where you're engaging a separate broker, then it only makes sense if you have a particular objective of investing more in any one sector versus another sector. I have a lot of interest in healthcare sector. I have a lot of interest in industrial sector. So I choose PMSs where I tell the investment manager to put a significantly more amount of money in healthcare and industrial as opposed to banking, etc. All that. Unless you have a specific idea or a desire or requirement, I would say Nifty index fund would be a very good idea for you to just park money and forget it. Those things really provide a very good return on investment. And for fixed income, we talked about earlier, senior citizen savings schemes or post office schemes, etc. All that. Okay. Again, trying to repeat the same thing. Be aware of the retirement corpus risks. Interest rates definitely you had to worry about. Inflation definitely you had to worry about, and taxes in both the countries had to worry about. I just want to capture those things just to make sure people are aware of the different risks. Even if we create the corpus, what you have to maintain the corpus, you have to worry about interest rates, inflation, and tax. And protecting your hybrid retirement is unique to dual country life. This is something which I keep in mind regularly because currency exchange is becoming highly volatile now. As you know, the current rate of dollar to rupees is about 97 rupees to a dollar. So things are getting quite dodgy in terms of the currency rate. So it's better to avoid counting on money in the US to fund your India life and vice versa. So you want to make sure that these two are kept completely separately. The USD INR fluctuates, a stronger rupee erodes your purchasing power. Fund, even investments in India, what I see here in the last 1 or 2 months, almost close to $12 billion worth of money was taken out of NRE, NRO accounts by people living abroad because they're worried about the volatility, they're worried about all this depreciation, etc. As rupee depreciates, your NRE accounts, NRO accounts become less and less attractive because when you put money in an NRE account in US dollars, the money gets converted at that time based on the existing currency conversion, and the money is actually held in rupees in India account. When you try to exit the NRE, they're going to reconvert that at the rate during the conversion. So it is quite possible, despite having tax-free returns from the NRE deposits in India, net in dollar terms, you may actually end up losing money. In fact, currently, if you had invested money in NRE accounts in the last 2 years, you're likely to have lost money in dollar terms because of the significant reduction of the exchange rate. So be careful and do that. This particular period of time is highly volatile. I don't think the currency risk is going to be this high in the long-term future, but over the next 1 or 2 years, I think there's going to be quite a lot of adjustments. There's a very good chance that the rupee could go up to 110 rupees to a dollar in the next 12 to 14 months. But that's very good expected. A lot of people are expecting here to go up to 110. So you need to plan around that, right? Definitely in terms of healthcare, Medicare is not valid in India. There's no Medicare coverage in India. You definitely have to maintain Medicare. And Medigap is basically, for people who don't understand what it is, Medicare basically provides you hospitalization and certain coverages, etc., which is free of cost. That's free of cost. What does it? There are certain things that Medicare doesn't cover. And for that, there is something called Medigap. Medigap is a secondary insurance you can purchase, which will cover for those things that Medicare doesn't cover. So most people end up signing for Medicare and also having some kind of Medicare. There's also something called Medicare Advantage, which is basically a private plan that you can opt for using the government's money. So either you have Medicare plus Medigap or you have Medicare Advantage. Either way, it's not free. The Medicare portion of it is free. The Medigap or the Medicare Advantage is actually money out of your hand. The estimate I showed you on one of the first slides is the amount of premium you have to pay, which currently is between $600 to $1,000 per month for two people, right? So you have to plan on that. It's not free. People have this misconception that Medicare is free. Medicare is not completely free. So similarly, for India side of the healthcare, budget for 15 to 30K per month for a premium for Indian healthcare coverage. And of course, you talked about the taxes, double taxation, etc. All that. Yes, Sridhar?
A quick question on the India, healthcare, which for
Yeah.
those of us who are looking at hybrid lifestyle,
Yeah.
how easy is it for those of us who are predominantly resident in the US, how easy is it to get this health insurance in India? I mean, I tried a little bit, but I didn't spend enough energy into it. Is this something that is relatively easy to get, Vish?
Yeah, definitely. Relatively very easy, actually. Ideally, you should get it before you turn 60. After 60, the premium dramatically increases. So if you're able to get the insurance coverage before you hit 60, and assuming you have no pre-existing conditions, a lot of those insurance companies also cover pre-existing conditions. Most insurance companies don't have any medical test required. They'll give it to you without having a medical test requirement if you get it in your 50s. Getting the insurance is not a problem. There are enough providers, enough agents available out there. The agent which I use, he does all my insurance coverages, and all I have to do is send him instructions, and he does all the work for me. He'll provide me all the comparable premiums, and he'll tell me which one is better in his opinion. And issuing, you just have to fill out. Most of the documentation is online, and then you basically had to write a check or transfer money to them, and they send you the policy documentation immediately. So I don't think it's difficult. It's better for you to do it when you're here, in case they want to meet you, etc. But it is possible to do it while you're in the US as well.
Okay.
You do need
Yeah,
you do need address in India. By the way, you do need an address in India. They will need for address proof. You have to give address
yes.
proof, and you have to have a PAN card.
Yes, that is fine. The address proof is another interesting topic for non-residents.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing I found effective was that I still maintain my Indian driver's license. That serves as an excellent address proof for a lot of things.
Yeah, I think address. Most people address proof in India is either Aadhaar card or voter ID or driving license. One of those two, one of the three. Because the PAN card doesn't have an address. Aadhaar has
Correct.
an address. Driving license has an address, and voter ID has an address. Now, people who are US citizens, there is no voter ID because you're not voting. You have no voting privileges in this country. So for me, I have Aadhaar, PAN, and ration card. I have a ration card here in this country.
You still have a ration card.
Yeah, I can have a ration card. You're
Interesting.
not eligible for ration. You have a ration card for identification purposes. So my ration card has my name, my address, my date of birth, my spouse's name, date of birth, etc. So that's a good enough identification. I don't actually get the ration benefit, but I have a ration card. You can actually apply for a ration card. What do they call a white card? A white ration card is one where there's no ration, only a card, and use it for benefits. So you can get Aadhaar card
Interesting.
for this thing. And I think nowadays for non-residents also Aadhaar card is available. So I think I would say most people, if you're planning to or you're thinking about coming and living in India or even visiting India, better to get an Aadhaar card, PAN card, and ration card. All three. Okay. So
Great. Thank you, Vish.
and the next topic is on Social Security. I think we talked about a little of it. Retirement benefits, monthly income based on your 35 highest earning years. So in my case, I worked for about 17 years in the US, and all 17 years I paid into Social Security. So I am eligible after 40 credits, 4 credits per year, 10 years of working, you're eligible for full Social Security. And they calculate your Social Security payout based on your highest 35 earning years. So after I left the US and moved back to India, even though I was working in the US, until such time when I was getting paid in the US, I was paying Social Security. Once I transitioned to India payroll, I stopped. I don't have to pay Social Security. So my Social Security payment is based on what I contributed, what I earned in the US up until 2008. So my benefit amount is going to be a little bit less compared to someone who has been working there for a very long time. But still, in Social Security, you can go up to the Social Security website and sign up with your account. It tells you what benefit you're going to get. And the last time I checked, I'm expecting a benefit of around $3,000, which I think is good because the highest you can get is $5,000, I believe. The highest amount of money Social Security is $5,000. So if you guys have worked in the US for a very long time and 35 your highest earning years, then you might get a little bit more. But most people get Social Security anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000. That's kind of the range I've seen for most people, and majority of them fall in that middle 3,000 area, right? So monthly income based on 35 highest earning years, you can claim at 62, which is 30% less than what you'll claim when you wait until 67, and you get more than 30% more when you do it 70. Your spouse, even if your spouse has not worked at all, gets 50% of your benefit when the spouse turns 62. How many of you knew this? Your spouse doesn't have to have any work history. The fact that they are your spouse, when they turn 62, they're able to get 50% of the same benefit you're getting. So, which means my wife will get $1,500 of Social Security when she turns 62 without doing anything. Together, we'll be getting, when she turns 62, together we'll be getting about $4,500 in benefit from the US government, which is more than sufficient to live in India, for sure, which is reasonably good amount to live in the US also. So I think Social Security is a very big thing we can bet on. There is a certain amount of uncertainty about Social Security. Social Security is actually paying out of a fund, a trust fund. That trust fund is getting insolvent. Currently, the trust fund is basically what it says is that in the last, since 1960s, when the Social Security Act was passed, Social Security is getting more money incoming than getting out. People are contributing into Social Security than claiming from there. In the last 10 years, it is reversed. More money is going out of Social Security than what is coming in. And so if Congress doesn't do anything, by 2033, the trust fund will become zero. Now, what does it mean? The trust fund becomes zero means because the money coming into Social Security is less than what is going out, the benefits are going to drop. The expectation is if Congress doesn't do anything, from 2033 onwards, everyone who's on Social Security, their benefit will see a reduction of 30% if Congress doesn't do anything. Now, I don't think the chances of Congress not doing anything is very, very less because it's a very big voting issue. So I think Congress will end up doing something. There are many proposals out there in front of Congress to decide. One is to increase that FICA percentage from 7.65 to something higher number. The second thing today, if you know, Social Security is only paid up amount of money in your income. If you are earning more than $180,000, you don't pay any Social Security beyond $180,000. The proposal in front of Congress now is to increase that $180,000 to $300,000, which means people who are earning in the US today, their income is more than $180,000, they'll be required to pay more FICA, more Social Security taxes up until they hit $300,000. If any of those actions are taken by the Congress, then Social Security is covered. There is no problem. But in the worst case scenario, if Congress doesn't do anything, Social Security is not going away. The only issue is that people who are on Social Security will get less benefit. About 30% is what the expectation of reduction if nothing else happens. So I didn't realize that. I did a lot of research to find what actually happens, and I finally went to Social Security and spoke to the people there and found out that we will definitely get 70% of what I'm expecting to get in the future also. So disability coverage is that in case you become disabled, Social Security money, and the survivor benefits in case you don't live and your spouse is there, a spouse starts to get the surviving spouse benefit even before they hit 62. So quite a lot of money coming from the US government in retirement. So I think this is a very good situation where people who are going to live hybrid life, your costs in the US more than likely will be covered significantly by Social Security. So you don't have to worry about a big corpus in the US. Of course, healthcare benefits you have to worry about, but even with all that, I think Social Security can cover a big amount of your living expenses in the US. You have to plan for a different amount of expenses for India. Okay. And
wish on that spousal benefit, well, you're right. As most people don't know that. But if you apply at 62, what the rule is, the primary beneficiary's full retirement age benefit, and then it is proportionally reduced. Correct. So if the spouse waits till 67, then they get 50% of the primary person's thing. And then that's on the negative side. But on the positive side, if the non-working spouse survives the main one, they start getting the full amount after the main person passes away. So which is good.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Exactly. Correct.
By the way, in terms of citizens, green card holders, and non-green card holders who have contributed to Social Security, I don't know what the rules are. Whether living in India, they can get that.
Yeah, citizens and green card, no problem. For non-immigrants, if you're H1, for example, if you're paid to the system, it's still possible to get. The process is different. The process is a little bit more complicated. You can still get the money in India. Even if you live in India, you still get the money in India, even as a non-resident, non-immigrant. But the complete process of invoking the money and where you get the money extra is a little bit more complicated. It has to, in fact, for those people, it has to be done in Manila. There's an office in US government office in Manila that processes all the Social Security for India. But if you're a citizen or a green card holder, you can do everything in the US.
Okay.
One thing I want to say of Social Security, remember, most of us, for example, in my case, I got my Social Security card when I came to study in the US when I was 21 years old. At that time, obviously, a non-immigrant. Later on, I became a US citizen. I assumed when I become a US citizen, the Social Security somehow magically will know I'm a citizen. It turns out Social Security doesn't know. In fact, 2 years ago, when I went to the Social Security office, the Social Security Administration database was still calling me a non-immigrant. So you have to actually go take your US passport to the Social Security office and inform them you have become a citizen, so they can make sure they can update your citizenship status and Social Security as a citizen. If you don't do that, when it comes to claiming Social Security, they will assume you're a non-immigrant and you have to go through a different process. So I think all of you should definitely make it a point at some point to religiously go to the Social Security office and show your passport and tell them to update your citizenship status to be a US citizen. I discovered this accidentally, by the way, accidentally. Now, I had gone there for some other purpose to Social Security office, and then when I told them that, do you have my passport number? She said that, what passport number? I have Indian passport number for you. And I had to change that. So make sure you use, and this cannot be done online. You have to physically go there and do it.
Right. I had to take care of that recently also.
Yeah.
It's not a
Are you able to verify it
showstopper, but it's just
online?
You can't do online. They don't allow it online. You have to go there and physically and
No,
take
no.
the passport.
Are we able to verify it? Is it?
No,
We
no.
are.
No.
Okay. Thank
Not verifiable either. And the funny thing is, after I go and showed them the passport, she said she updated the status, but she said, I can't give you proof for that. I said, how do I know you updated it? She said, I'll show you the screen. She actually showed me the screen and said, it's updated, so be happy now. You don't get a separate card. You don't get a new card. You get the exact same number, same card. But inside their system, they update your security or citizenship status to citizen. And the only proof is for her to show the screen to you. You don't get anything in writing or anything like that, which I find very, very unusual.
Even the same goes to driving license too. You have
Yeah.
to go to the DMV and update.
Right, exactly. Ramesh, you have a question?
Yeah, with me, they gave me a new social security card. It does not have that logo which says need INS verification for employment. So it becomes empty. Like you'll recall your social security. One of the text it would say is valid with only INS or USCIS authentication. For a US citizen, when I converted it, like they gave me a new social security card, same number minus that text. It looks
Interesting.
exactly the same. It's just that text vanished. It came
Interesting.
later in the mail for me. Maybe the procedure has changed.
Interesting. Anyway, so when to claim Social Security, you have option between earlier claiming and later claiming, and depending upon when you claim, your benefit will vary. So this chart kind of gives you the 4 options. If you claim early, what happens to your benefit, etc. Next item is on healthcare, the biggest retirement wild card, as I call it. This is fun statistics. United States spends about $12,318 per capita on healthcare retirement, healthcare in terms of US, and Germany. All the advanced countries have a lot less than that. Despite that, during the working years, when you are part of your employer provided insurance, preventive care and prescriptions are covered. Lower cost for your cost sharing, etc. In retirement, Medicare only starts at 65. You still have a higher out-of-pocket cost, and long-term care needs are not covered in that. So you need to have a separate long-term care need because it is not part of the regular Medicare. And Medicare premiums, as you heard before, for Medigap and Medicare Advantage, etc., you have a lot of premium for that. So you have to be very careful to understand what is covered, what is not covered. It took me a long time to understand what exactly Medicare covers, and it's not very easy to understand. The way they write those documents are so convoluted that you really have to read every single line and understand what they're trying to say there. Finally, after reading that a few times and talking to some people, I think I have a 80% clarity on what it actually provides you. And dental is not covered, vision is not covered, long-term care is not covered. For those coverage, you have to pay separately for that. Then you have the prescription drugs are covered in a different plan. So you need to look at all these things, all the plans in Medicare, to really understand what amount of money you have to pay, because you have a choice of not paying for some things and not having certain benefits. But nobody actually tells you in simple terms what is covered, what is not covered. So if any of you have questions, since I spent a lot of time reading these things and understanding things, I'm happy to help you navigate through some of those items in the Medicare setup. Okay. Further, so 2 countries, 2 plans. In the US, you of course have Medicare has a Part A, which is the one I talked about. Part A is hospitalization. That is free, no cost to you. Part B of Medicare is the medical coverage that is not covered in the hospitalization for other things. It is $174 a month is what I calculated for myself. Part D is a prescription medicine, which is somewhere $30 to $60 a month. Medigap covers for things that Medicare doesn't cover. That's about $100 to $300 a month. So for someone like me, you have to plan for at least $400 to $700 a month for the US healthcare. This is after Medicare being free. You still have to plan for $400 to $700 a month per person. So if two of us are going to be covered, we have to plan for at least $800 to $1,500 a month for a complete coverage in healthcare in the US. In India, of course, Medicare doesn't cover in India, so Indian policy is required. For a 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs sum assured, your premium is going to be somewhere around 15,000 per month. Of course, a lot of these Indian healthcare covers dental, vision, etc., all that too. So the healthcare plans in India are quite good, quite generous, I would say. And there are a lot of plans available. You can take it from anywhere and you can use it for part of the time, etc., like that. Okay. Life insurance. A lot of people ask this question: is life insurance required after you stop working? I don't have life insurance because I find it that the amount of money I'm going to put as a premium life insurance, I can invest the money and make more out of it. And secondly, life insurance, in my opinion, is only required if you need to have income coverage when you're not there. At this stage in life, my income is not that much, so I don't see any reason to have any coverage for income, which is very small. But some people still say that having life insurance is a good idea, term insurance is a good idea. So it's something that you have to think about. There's no simple straight answer for that. Obviously, you need to have 6 to 12 months of expenses liquid for you to cover any emergencies, etc., all that. And as long as you have health insurance and long-term care is a big worry. If you look at here, the US nursing home cost, if you look at the US long-term care nursing home cost, it's about $100,000 a year. I checked it out in multiple states in the US. Even in the least expensive states, it goes to about $100,000 a year for nursing home status. So if you are someone who is considering retiring at a very later stage in life, I think it will be definitely a better idea to do that in India versus staying in the US. I see the places too where the nursing homes are there. It's very expensive. The care is also not that great, to be honest.
Right. So, Vishwa, we talked about this before. Is there exact equivalent of nursing home in India?
Not really. Not really.
Okay.
What you do have is you have retirement old age homes, which are basically you can buy property inside a community. You buy the property. Basically, you buy the property, right? And then every other service is given as part of the subscription package. So food, medical cover, security, safety, etc. You can further cover. That is how it works in India. The true nursing home care that you have in the US, there are some companies offering it now. In Chennai, for example, there is a company called Atulya. Atulya offers nursing home care where you basically go there and settle there, right? And they take care of everything for you. Atulya today for a person costs about $1 lakh a month, 1 lakh a month.
Yes, right. It's probably at the minimum, low end.
Yeah, there are many like that. There's another one called Ziva, which is also near in Chennai. That costs a little bit more. Ziva is a little bit more luxurious. But if you think about nursing home type equivalent in India, things like Atulya or things like Ziva would be somewhere between $1 lakh to 1.5 lakhs a month. But you get excellent coverage. Everything is covered for you. Whereas the nursing home thing you see in the US, despite being very high cost, not everything is covered there. They still ask for money for certain things. I tried to find out information about it. I wasn't very interested in knowing more because I wasn't considering it. But I found out that not only you have to pay more, the coverage is not nearly as good. So for people who are considering retiring, I think if you guys are considering have a choice, definitely consider retiring in India in the old age. Definitely much better.
Ziva, how do you spell that? SHI
ZIVA. ZIVA.
Oh, ZIVA.
It's actually in Mahabalipuram. But on the way to Mahabalipuram, I have a couple of my clients who live there. We take care of them. Even though they're living in an old age home, we take care of their needs there by taking them out and all that. It's very nice. The facility is extremely nice. There are many now coming up in the outskirts of Chennai. There is one new one that has come in Mahindra City recently, which is even better than Ziva, actually. So people who are earning in, like people from NRIs who come from the US who want to retire here, they're choosing these luxurious old age homes where they get tremendous amount of service. There are places which provide you basketball courts, pickleball courts, They provide you things like exactly like the US here, and 24-hour medical care, 24-hour food, 24-hour every service, etc. You don't have to do anything. Everything is covered.
What is that Mahindra City thing? Do you know the name?
I don't know, but it's the new one is come
Okay.
up recently, but I can find and let you know. It's
Okay.
quite. I heard it's very nice. It's very nice actually. It's inside Mahindra City actually. Inside.
Okay, but it is better. It is not the old age. It's not the independent living, like those who cannot take care of themselves. They take care of them
No.
and take them to hospitals and all that, right?
That for that you had to go to something like Atulya or something like that. They only take care
That's
of
what
them.
I meant. That's
Jerry-
like
Jerry-
a nursing home.
Yeah, there is a company called Jerry Care in Chennai. Jerry Care also offers US nursing home type service here, where they take care of all your medical needs, etc. All that. There are a few. Jerry Care is one. Atulya is one. There are a few others like that. The rest of them are all old age homes where they don't provide all the services like a old nursing home. But
Oh, I see. The Ziva is not such a nursing
No,
home equivalent.
no,
I
no.
see.
we were on nursing home. No.
Okay, so it's basically Atulya and Jerry Care. Okay, got
Correct.
it.
Correct. Exactly.
Other cities also offer that, like Bangalore.
I think so. I think there are a lot of coming in Bangalore. A lot of them are in Coimbatore. A lot of them are in Kerala. A lot of them are coming up now. Choices are very many now, actually. With different kind of business models, different kind of services. Some a cross between a nursing home and an old age home. Multiple opportunities are available now. It's a very big
But
booming market now.
Coimbatore is, lots of places for old age home, but the equivalent of nursing home is what I was
Yeah.
interested in. Okay, I'll check it out.
Very equivalent of a nursing home is not very many yet. Correct.
Okay.
Further on insurance, health insurance planning, I think we talked about that. Enroll in Medicare at 65, Part A, Part B, Part D, and Medicap. I give all the numbers here. Similarly, Indian health insurance. For retirees, for hybrid retirees like me, we can coordinate our calendar so that we do all the stuff that we want to do in India when we're in India. So dental care, etc., all that. Just a simple example: dental implant is about $6,000 in the US. It's about 40,000 rupees in India. So you can plan all your procedures while you're here. Every time I come here, I diligently go to my dentist to get my cleaning done, crown work done, etc., all that. We don't have to do the same thing in the US. Similarly, all the medical tests, if you want to do a preventive medical care checking, etc. Here in India, they come to your home, draw blood. They even bring radiology equipment to your home to take radiology scans for you at home and provide you a full report. And doing that in the US is not going to be very easy. So for hybrid retirees, plan your schedule so that all the stuff, all your preventive care, all your dental care can be done while you're in India and the period you're sitting here and doing that. It works very well. I tried it for the last 5 years and it works brilliantly well.
Especially this people coming to home to draw blood. That's
Yeah.
royalty in here,
Yeah.
US. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Many things happen at home here, my friend. I told you, our lunch and breakfast and dinner is delivered every day to our home, fresh and easy. All the stuff you want to buy gets delivered in 10 minutes or less through quick commerce. If you want to send any courier package, they come and collect it from your house and take it away. You don't have to even go to the courier place. For preventive healthcare, they come and draw blood from your house. You don't have to leave the house at all. You can do everything just sitting at your home and using your app. I tell
Right.
you,
Just as a funny anecdote, last year we rented a place in West Mambalam for 6 weeks, and so every morning when we wake up, what's for breakfast? We had 5 different choices to go get it from.
Yes, exactly. So tax planning, 401k traditional area, as I said, the required minimum distribution started at age 73. So you want to make sure you convert your traditional and 401k into Roth. You don't have to worry about this required minimum distribution at that point in time. Roth IRA and Roth 401k are both after tax contributions. So withdrawals are 100% tax free and there is no minimum distribution commitment. Social Security is taxable. Up to 85% of Social Security is taxable depending upon your tax bracket. Capital gains rates are 0% and 15%. Capital gains in India is not 0%. Capital gains in India for long-term capital gains is 12.5%, and for short-term gains is about 20%. So be careful that how you sell and liquidate and reinvest your money. If you're not careful, you end up paying a lot of taxes in India and in the US also. So you have to be very careful about how capital gains work in both countries. And if you're going to do stuff, if you're a resident of India and if you're going to do capital gains in the US, I had to report that money here in India. Since the rates are different, I end up having different tax obligations for the same capital gains in India. And I had to explain to them. And currently recently, the Indian Tax Administration has given an option where 401k distribution, which is tax-free in the US, which is the return is tax-free in the US. That return is actually taxable in India because India doesn't consider your 401k as a non-taxable thing. But there are provisions in the Indian taxation law that come recently. There's one particular form that you can file where you can say this is a retirement income you paid in the US, and you can defer the tax in India for a period of time. If you don't do that, the government is going to assume your 401k return is taxable in India. But there are provisions available that are introduced in the Indian tax law in the last few years, which allows you to claim tax waivers for certain kinds of retirement income in the US. If you need more
Whoa.
information, you can talk to me. Yeah, there are some new provisions coming here based on this. I'm just learning all
Whoa.
these things now and using that right now. So my information is not 100%, but there are provisions for that.
But by the way, the fact that you say it is taxable is very concerning because most people wouldn't even know what their cost basis is.
What they're just going to whatever money you're withdrawing, they're going to tax here. It's considered income. So if
like,
you
do they distinguish Roth versus non-Roth? Do they distinguish those
doesn't
things?
matter. Doesn't matter. Roth are all US things. Here it is all same. Income is income.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but there are, as I said, there are provisions available now, which is introduced in the last few years. There are forms you can fill, which will allow you to get some waivers. But you have to fill those forms to get the waivers.
But that's still a deferment, which means you're definitely double taxed. Okay.
On the retirement piece, yes. Yes, correct. Yes, Sridhar?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So my parents actually, after living here for several years, almost 40 years, they retired in India. So I actually, many of the things that you talk about makes a lot of sense. I see them as a use case in that. But this particular aspect of the RMDs, it just kills them on taxes in India because they are Indian residents. And the taxation is really huge with respect to RMD. I think, I think for many of us considering this, I think the Roth conversion that you brought up earlier is something to be looked at very, very carefully.
Correct.
I think.
Yeah. So to avoid the minimum distribution, required minimum distribution, if you don't need the money, if it is sitting in a 401k, you are forced to withdraw the money, which means you are forced to pay tax both there and here. If you move it into a Roth, then you don't have to at least withdraw it. If and when you withdraw it, it will be taxed anyway, but in India, but at least you can defer it to as much as possible and not have to.
And if you don't need it, at least
it
goes to your children or whatever. That option is possible with the Roth.
Correct. And that transfer of money from your Roth to your children can be done tax-free, by the way. Can be done tax-free. So you had to talk to someone who is in estate planning who can give you an idea how to set up those things. So your 401 Roth IRA doesn't attract any tax when it gets moved to your children later on. Okay.
Okay, so Roth is not as bad as I thought then, because if you have money in Roth, you don't need to take it out. So that would never be considered as income in India, right?
As long as you don't take it out. As long as you don't take it out. Yes.
And same here too. I mean, when in the US also, if you don't need it, please, you don't have to touch it. It has multiple implications for taxation as well as your
No. I'm by the way, I'm asking very specific things. Roth, you already paid taxes on it. When you take it out in US, there is no tax. But I'm worried about India's situation. Do they tax in India after when you take out Roth here? Because
yes, they do. They don't differentiate. It's just income for you. They look at it as income.
That's a major issue. Okay.
So that is why I think what I would suggest is that the last money you take out is Roth money. Try and use everything else before you come to Roth. Roth should be kept the very last thing to take away, because a significant amount of tax issues surrounding taking Roth if you're living in one country and paying tax in another country. Okay. Cool. Let's keep going. Next one is this is the 180-day rule. If you want to maintain your non-resident status in India, then you have to make sure that you don't stay more than 180 days in India. This number is also changing, by the way. In the last year's tax update in India, they make this 120 days. If your income in India is more than 15 lakh, then the threshold is not 182 anymore, it's 120. So if you stayed more than 120 days in India, and if your income in India is more than 15 lakhs, you are deemed as a resident and you have to disclose your global income. This is actually directly targeting all the Middle East expats. People in the Middle East, they're living tax-free in India and tax-free in the Middle East. So because of that, now the Indian government has changed the rule to 120 days. So if you are going to have more than 15 lakhs in income in India, then your threshold is 120 days to be considered a citizen. So if you're going to live more than 4 months in India, and if you have more than 15 lakhs in income, you will become a resident for tax purposes. US, we know how.
By the very specific case, if one of the, say in my friend's case, the non-working spouse stayed for more than this 183 days in India in a particular year,
Mhm.
do they really know? I mean, that's kind of a very complex situation. The person, just because one person stayed there, do they become a tax resident? Anyway, that may be a very
No.
complicated, very
Let
specific situation.
understand one thing. Unlike the US, where you have joint filing status, there is no joint filing status in India. The concept doesn't exist in India. Each person is independent. So the rule applies to spouse separately and you separately.
So that person then has to pay
Yes.
for taxes on the joint US income or on their personal US income.
If the account is maintained in the US as a joint and your spouse is the primary holder, then they are liable for taxes in India if they stay more than 180 days.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. Yeah, I have tried all those shenanigans and made sure that in some accounts I'm the primary, in some accounts wife is the primary. You have to play all those little games. That's why it takes a little while to plan this living in two countries. It's not very easy. And hence this presentation. So
really, yeah.
More income types, home sales are treated differently, pension income is treated differently, annuities are treated differently. So again, I'm giving a lot of information here. You have to spend time on each one of this to see how it works. If you own a home in India and you sell a home in India and want to take the money back to the US, there are certain provisions through the LRS scheme that we have here. You're allowed to take a certain amount of money, but those are all very specific topics. What I would say that those could be something that we can discuss if there is anyone really interested in them. But these are the different other kinds of taxation you should be aware of: how pension income is taxed, how home sale is taxed, etc. All that. Those things are handled differently. Further, let's see. So in terms of tax, smart tax withdrawal strategy, I think we talked about it. Take all your taxable income brokerages amount first, exhaust them, then go to 401k, traditional IRA. Roth should be the last, because Roth is the one where you have a lot of leverage in terms of not having to pay taxes and not having to take money out, etc. So if you start withdrawing money, take money out of the brokerage accounts and savings accounts first, then go to your 401k and IRA, and then Roth, and delay Social Security if you want to get the maximum benefit. So this sequence matters from a tax optimization standpoint. Okay. Again, smart withdrawal, taxable, same thing you said in the previous slide. Top side is US, bottom side is India. If you're going to withdraw from India, NRE deposit should be taken out first. Then you can take the mutual funds through the systematic withdrawal plan and the senior citizen savings scheme and promise. These are all high yielding, zero risk funds. So I would say that you want to take this at the very last and take the NRE deposits first, the order of withdrawal. And in US, as you know that, pre 72 years old, spend your taxable assets. 73 later, you can do the RMDs, and Roth IRA is the one you're going to use for legacy, not to spend. In terms of physical wellness, obviously, these are all things we are trying to practice here. Staying active daily, aim for at least 150 minutes. The latest research says that you don't need to walk 10,000 steps every day to be healthy. They say the latest number is 7,000 steps actually. So aim for 150 minutes of moderate exercise weekly, and definitely have cardio exercises and muscle exercises also. Nutrition and diet obviously goes without saying. Preventive screenings. I think I can't emphasize enough the number of people who are finding out they have a health problem because they didn't do the physical wellness checking. It's just ridiculous. I think everyone should, at least after they reach 50, should make it a point to do a wellness check every single year. You can prevent and avoid a lot of headaches if you're able to detect things earlier on in life. By waiting until the last minute, things get much, much worse. I see this happen almost every day, and I keep telling people that whenever I see them, please take care of your physical health and please go and get checked regularly every year. After 50, definitely every year. Before 50, maybe once in 2 years. And getting these things done in India, it costs about 5,000 rupees to do a head-to-toe check. And they give you a comprehensive report on everything you want to know. And once you have that, you can easily find out if there are potential problems and take care of them much, much earlier. So physical health
is
very important.
More than a blood test, Vish? Is it a scan or what's going on?
Everything. If you are willing to pay, I have a program with Apollo Hospital, so I had to pay them 8,000 rupees. They provide me all the blood tests. They do about some 130 different blood tests for me. They screen for cancer. They screen for all the metabolic diseases. They screen for all that thing. They do a ECG, echo, treadmill test, ultrasound, endoscopy, all that. They also, if in cases where you have a history of any problem, they can also do additional tests. Then they do your vision, your hearing, all that is done as part of the package. So definitely
But
worthwhile
much better
investment.
than what they do in US on an animal
Yeah.
physical.
For 8,000 rupees, you get a complete head to toe, and you can basically find out about all your, if you have any deficiencies in vitamins, for example, all that. The report is very comprehensive. So next time when you come in India, I think if you guys are here, take the time to go and sign up for one of those things. It's very easy. You don't need appointments. Just call them and say you're coming there. You pay the money. They'll take care of it. You need to spend the whole day though, because you need to give blood, etc. All that. But it's definitely well worth it, because the more you find early, the better off you are.
There's something with the MRI scan also if you pay a
No.
higher amount.
No, MRI scan, you have to have a prescription for that. Somebody has to prescribe for you that. You can't have MRI scan just like that. You had some doctor has to write a prescription. CT scan, MRI, and PET scan need a prescription.
Okay.
Because that's only because the demand is so high. They don't want people to just go and take MRI just like that. So they expect you to have a prescription with a condition that the doctor is looking for. Okay. In terms of mental and physiological wellness, I want to spend a little time on that. One of the biggest problems I see people when they stop working is they're excited and they spend a lot of time, but a lot of people have a loss of identity. And one unfortunate thing is that majority of people I see, their identity during the work life is tied to work. Now, once they stop working, they really have a crisis in terms of who they are. I have come up with a concept which called portfolio life, which I'm adopting for the last 10 years. I started this transition in 2015, where I decided consciously to not have my identity tied to my work, and ended up looking at a bunch of things I engage myself in. So when I stopped working in 2020 full time, I had other things to attach my identity to, which the transition made it very easy. It's a whole new topic called portfolio life planning. I have a presentation on that. I can do it later on for you guys. What does it mean? Why is it important? How do you do that? What are the benefits, etc. All that. But think about this word called portfolio life. Think about it like this, like a financial portfolio where you have equity and bonds and fixed instruments, etc., to provide different kinds of returns. Life is also a sequence of various things. So you need to have some activities that help you to earn money, some activities for you to learn something new, some activities to spiritually involve yourself, some activities to keep you physically healthy, some activities to keep you mentally healthy. So portfolio life is actually like a retirement plan. There is a portfolio life plan. So later on, a month or so from now, I'm happy to do a presentation on that. What does it mean? How did I do that? What are the benefits, etc.? But loss of identity is one thing people have to be very careful about. You need to really plan on planning your time you're going to spend well before you choose to retire, so that the transition becomes much easy. I have a lot of clients coming into her counseling because of depression after they retire, because they have no way to identify who they are. They lose identity and they don't know what to do next. So this is a very critical point. Most retirement planners don't talk about this at all. To me, it's a very, very important part of your planning process to make sure that you don't attach all your identity to only one aspect of your job, and try and define yourself and create purpose for you in life before you retire, so that you can have a good time during retirement. So excitement and freedom, loss of identity, anxiety and uncertainty, particularly if you have not saved well enough, you're going to have anxiety and uncertainty. Loneliness, because if you're going to work, you have a schedule, you have people you're working with, etc. Moment you stop working, then you're going to have to fill that gap with the right social connections. The portfolio life concept talks about this also a lot. Purposelessness and opportunities. So all this is important. What I'm going to show here is that it's not only about money, it also involves other things, and being mentally and psychologically prepared is a very important part of retirement. Okay. Similarly, money can't buy happiness, but financial freedom can buy happiness actually. So people say money is not important. I disagree. Money is very important. It may not be able to buy happiness, but definitely financial freedom can buy you a lot of peace of mind. So what actually makes people happy is free time and no financial stress. I can vouch for this. I don't need to get up in the morning on Monday and go to work. That's a brilliant feeling. You can't imagine how great it feels to get up on Monday morning and not have to go to work. So free time and no financial stress, time spending with your loved ones, your own spouse, your children, your grandchildren, etc. Can't emphasize how great that is. Engaging in work or hobbies that you want to do. I took up counseling. I went to college, got a degree in psychology. I took it up because I really want to do counseling. Tremendously enjoyable and fulfilling. I spend 3 to 4 hours every day counseling people, right? So engaging work or hobbies is very important. Exercise and physical health. So these are the things which actually, believe it guys, after you finish working, these are the things that are going to make your day look better and better every day. Not how big a car you have, how big a home you have, or how many things you have. I have seen enough people in my travel in the US in the last 5 years, people living in very big homes with plenty of new cars, but not enough happiness. So clearly make sure that all these factors, which are all very easy to attain, or planned well in advance so that your retirement doesn't become stressful. Hedonic adaptation, the happiness trap. Newer purchases only give you a flash of delight for a short amount of time. They don't necessarily sustain the happiness. So material things are important, required, but really what you want to have during those later stages of life is the things I say in the left-hand side, which is what actually makes people happy. Financial freedom is important. As I told you, money may not be able to have a happiness, but financial freedom is definitely very important. Saving earlier stages, earlier parts of life is not sacrifice, it's only optimization. People don't understand that. They say, I live only once, I want to spend money. Nothing wrong with that, but saving doesn't mean sacrifice. The reason I'm able to live a life right now because I was not spending all my money when I was 30 and 40. So we have to help explain people that saving doesn't mean sacrifice. Redirect spending from things to experiences, definitely create hobbies, etc. All that. So bottom line in this whole side, what I'm saying is that what is going to make your life interesting, exciting, and happy is not the things that you believe makes you happy when you're younger. That's the bottom line message I'm trying to convey here. Okay. So post-retirement goals, family education, milestones, bequeathing a legacy, hobbies, travel, going back. Travel is an important part of it. Make sure you have all your travel planned in the early parts of retirement. After 70, chances of you having the ability to travel may not be very high. So if you're going to stop working when you're, let's say, 62, use the first 7-8 years to do all the travel all you want. Our plan, we go to the US every single year. I can tell you that after another 8-9 more years, I don't know if you want to travel every year. You may not be willing to travel every year. Even if you're driving business class, for example, still travel has its own challenges in terms of physical stress. So if you are going to stop working, make sure you do all your travel that you want to do in the early parts of your retirement when you have the money, when you have the energy, and when you have the desire to do all those. Other things, of course, are easily understandable. Staying connected. The social part of it is also very important. Community and cultural ties. What I do when I come to the US, I'm obviously very good at very interested in networking people. I have CEG meets everywhere I go. Every single city I go to, I create a CEG meet. Last year, I did 7 meets, one in Dubai, one in Abu Dhabi, one in Bay Area, one in Dallas, one in Austin, one in Pittsburgh. So cultural ties and social ties, try and stay as closely as possible with people who have a common interest like you. Could be alumni, could be people with a certain kind of interest. It's extremely important. I tell you, I cannot tell you the importance of this. Being socially connected, not digitally connected, physically, socially connected is extremely important. It makes a very, very big difference in those stages in life. So please don't discount that. Even if you haven't done it all through your life, make it a point to try and get into all the social circles. It does a lot of benefit than the negative aspect of that. So join Indian cultural associations, temple associations, community centers, etc. All that. Plenty of ways to connect in the US, plenty of ways to connect in India also. I can tell you that whether I'm in the US or here, I don't have any problem finding people to connect with and work with, and that is extremely fulfilling. Similarly, if you have children and grandchildren, clearly you can spend time with them. You want to plan your travel to the US during the times when they're available, which is usually during the summer months of May, June, and July. Spend time with all your relatives, etc. Even if you're not able to do it in your working life, I have to tell you that the amount of happiness and satisfaction working with people, hanging out with people, talking to people, just cannot be emphasized enough, right? And finally, volunteering. This is something very important. The work I'm doing with NGOs here in India, those NGOs do incredible amount of work. All they want is people like us to help them with planning, strategy, fundraising, etc. Most of what I do in India is basically working with these NGOs to help plan their projects very well. A lot of them are very good intent to do stuff, but they don't have the ability to plan and organize and execute very well. So I spend a lot of my time in helping them to put the budgets for the year, strategies for what they should do, how to measure the return, how to measure the impact, etc. All that. For those who want to come to India and want to live in Chennai, I can introduce you to hundreds of organizations. They do brilliant work, excellent work, and I'm very happy to take help from anyone else. And I can tell you the amount of satisfaction and fulfillment you get by participating in this is incredible. It's truly incredible. And I think the possibility of that is much higher living in India than in the US. So if you want to be in this mode, then try and spend more time in India during your retirement ages. Okay. And of course, this cultural and spiritual part of it is also very important. I think there are opportunities to do it in both countries now. As I said, when we come here in the winter months, we do a lot of travel. We go to Tirupati every year, as I said. I go to Sabrimala every year. We go to Tiruvannamalai during Kartigai season every year. Plus, there are functions and festivals here, the music season in India, etc. All that. A lot of ways for you to de-stress on things that you haven't had time to do when you're working. And I can tell you that planning your time when you come here for 3 or 4 months, we are more busy in the months when we are here from September to February than the time you spend in the US. There's so much to do here and so much things that we are not able to do when you're working, when you're traveling, etc. All that. You do need to take the time to enjoy those things. All these things make a huge difference in your mood, in your mindset, in your outlook, in your optimism, etc. All that. I can't emphasize enough, guys. Definitely, cultural practices and spiritual practices should definitely be part of your life when you're in this stage of life, for sure. Last item is estate planning. I don't spend a lot of time. This is a very, very important topic, but I'm just giving you a gist here. Definitely need a will. Your will you write in the US will not be sufficient to cover everything in India and vice versa. You absolutely have to have 2 separate wills to cover your assets in the 2 different countries. This is very important. Both are required. It's not an option. And without an Indian will, all the property you have in India will go to follow the Hindu Succession Act in India. In the US, if you don't have a will, it goes to the state. Both are not good. So to avoid doing that, I would say spend a little bit of time and create a will. Creating a will is not a very difficult exercise. In the US, you can do it on your own using software. You can do it with your own software. All you have to do is register the will and use a notary public so that you can keep it safe there. In India, registration is not mandatory, but registration is recommended so that it is clear and everybody knows what it is. In the US, if you have a will, it will still go through a probate. The courts have to do the probate process and then only get the money. If you want to avoid probate system in the US, then you have to use what is called a living trust. But living trust and will are 2 different things. They're not one or the other. You could have both. There are specific advantages of having a living trust versus having a will. I'm not going to cover all this here, but it's a very, very important topic. I think all of you who are going to have a decent amount of investments, decent amount of money or decent amount of inheritance, you definitely should plan your will and trust very, very carefully. At the very minimum, you need a will. And ideally, you may need a will as well as a trust, living trust as well. Similarly, you need to have medical power of attorney. You need to be able to sign something so that you can have somebody else make decisions on your behalf. If you don't have a medical power of attorney, the doctors will make their own decisions what they want to do. So all these things are very, very important. These things should be done as early as possible. So write your own will and make sure that all the information you have. I have a separate presentation called End of Life Planning. Things that you need to document when you are doing well and alive and healthy, so that if you do, when you leave the world, people who are left behind don't have to scramble. I have seen enough cases of people when someone passes away, their family has no idea about any of their disposition. And it takes years to reconstruct a person's financial life and legal life and work life, etc., if they don't document. So I have a presentation called End of Life Planning. I'll be more than happy to do the presentation for all of you guys again. Things that you should be documenting, and it's not 1 or 2 things. There are multiple things you have to document in different categories. So make sure that you document all your information so that tomorrow, if you're not there, somebody can follow up on that. After creating all this, after making all the plan and building a corpus, if you're not able to communicate that information to someone who can benefit when you're not there, the whole purpose is lost. So please make sure you do that documentation. That's what I call the black box in this picture here. So write your will, make sure that you're at peace, do all the financial transparency, make sure you nominate beneficiaries in your 401k, in your IRA, in your Roth IRA, etc., beneficiaries in your life insurance, write a will for all those things, and if not, a trust for all those.
Which definitely you should do that presentation again. This is very important. Yeah.
Okay, super. Definitely will do.
So one question on that one is, there is estate taxes in US. Are there estate taxes in India?
Not exactly estate taxes, not like what it works in the US there. It's a very much simpler here actually. But
okay,
with the will is not there. If the will is not there, then the way the whole thing is handled is different. It's better to have it so you can tell who gets what. Gifting also works the reverse in India. In the US, the person who is giving the gift has to pay taxes. In India, it's the reverse. People who are getting the pay tax here. There are certain thresholds after which tax increases, and a certain threshold after which tax is not applicable. So you need to understand the different tax rules. I have figured out most of it to make sure that my kids don't pay unnecessary taxes when I donate them in India. But that's something that you need to plan separately in terms of how gifting works and how taxation and gifting works, etc. The next chapter is on spouse's financial future. All this we talked about so far is for our own future, but your spouse might be living longer than you, so make sure that they are also aware of the information, financial information. Create a master summary of all the documents so they can have that. I think in general, simplifying your portfolio is good so that your spouses don't get overwhelmed. Don't have more than 2 bank accounts in India. Don't have more than one platform for equity investments. Don't have FDs in multiple banks. No reason to have that. Set up the automatic income in both countries. In the US, Social Security benefits will apply to your spouse if you're not there. In terms of your FDs and your CSS accounts, you can put joint accounts and nominees and that. Make sure that every account has a nominee. It's extremely critical. Without a nomination process, if it's a single account, no nominee, then the banks get to decide who the money goes to. So make sure you have a nominee in all your accounts. And that process of putting nomination is very simple, just filling out a form. And that saves a lot of headache in the future. So definitely make sure for all the accounts you have in India, you have a nominee. And for all those 401k, IRA, Roth IRA, and life insurance, have a beneficiary filled out properly. Okay. So I think one of the last few slides, what are the 7 common mistakes retirees make that you should avoid doing? Not tracking number of days in India. You end up paying tax in India because you don't know how many days you spent in India. Very important. Letting Medicare lapse. Never do that. If you don't enroll on time, it's going to cost a lot of money. If you let Medicare lapse, you have a problem. Getting it back is very, very, very difficult. Not having health insurance in India, bad idea. Definitely get health insurance as soon as possible. Even if you don't need it now, get an insurance now because your premium will be much lower now, so that when you cross 60 and 70, your premiums are manageable. If you start to take insurance after you're 60, your premium will be much, much higher. Much, much higher. And in fact, some of the providers don't even write insurance after 70 actually. So I would say definitely advise all of you to get Indian health insurance, even if you don't plan to come here, just in case. The amount of money you're going to spend is very little. It's definitely worth having a health insurance in India. Definitely you funding all the expenses in India from India, not from USD, because of the exchange. So make your corpus for India separate from corpus from the US. Do not ignore the FBAR and FATCA reporting. If you have any account in India more than $10,000, you have to report that to the US. FBAR reporting is separate. FATCA reporting is separate. FATCA reporting is done as part of the IRS 1040. FBAR is done separately. Both need to be done and both are important. Definitely have power of attorney in both countries to make sure affairs are managed. And finally, having 2 tax systems, 2 healthcare systems, 2 legal systems, it's not simple. It is complex, but it doesn't have to become very complex. You can easily plan around it. I have spent more than 6 years working on this, and I think I have a reasonably good idea what I'm doing. Still, sometimes I find surprises, but all these things need to be done if you want to live a life like this. And once you have all these planned things, then life gets much, much more simpler. Okay, so my idea of doing this presentation is to document what all I gone through. Again, this is a summary slide telling all the different things we talked about already. So final slide: retire well, live fully, be financially prepared, both in India as well as the US. Be physically vibrant, do all the things that require to keep yourself healthy, make yourself a medical checks done regularly. Be mentally fully engaged, get involved in social service, voluntary service, spiritual service. Be spiritually grounded. All these things are important. Retirement is not just about money. Retirement is about a lot of things, and all these things matter. And I can't emphasize enough that every one of them has its own value. So we need to make sure that we plan for all these things well in advance, so that when a time comes to it, we can actually execute on them. I hope it was useful for you guys. Here on my contact list, you can reach out to me in multiple different ways. I'm available in most social media platforms. My objective of doing the presentation is mainly to at least put the experiences in paper, so that it could be useful for people who are trying to do that. I hope it is going to be useful. I hope you found something useful in this. If you have any questions, please, by all means, you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to help with whatever knowledge I have. I do visit the US regularly every year. My next visit is probably going to be early part of next year. For the foreseeable future, I plan to live here in India, but if a consulting engagement comes, I had to come there. I might come there sometime in the fall also. But you can definitely reach me both in the US as well as here in my email and my WhatsApp. Okay? Questions?
வணக்கங்க. என் பேர் சிட்ரஸுங்க, CG89. கேக்குதுங்களா?
Yeah.
உங்களோட ஃபேன் ஆயிட்டேன் நானு. நீங்க வந்து இது ரூம் போட்டு யோசிச்சு கிட்டத்தட்ட 12 வருஷமா உங்களோட எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ நோட் எடுத்து எழுதிருப்பீங்க போல. ரொம்ப ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்குங்க. இது வந்து எங்க வைஃபும் பக்கத்துல இருந்து கேட்டுக்கிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. ஐ திங்க் we have an way what I will be doing it. Like hybrid retirement. அவங்க வீட்ல கேட்டுக்கிட்டே இருந்தாங்க, என்ன பண்ண போறீங்க, என்ன பண்ணுவோம் நம்ம அப்படின்றத. I think I have a way to do it. அதுவும் இடையில வேற சொன்னீங்க எங்கர் ஒய்ஃப்னு சொன்னீங்க. நான் நினைச்சேன் உங்களுக்கு 2 ஒய்ஃப் இருக்கு போல. ஒண்ணு எங்கரு, ஒண்ணு வந்து ரெகுலர் அப்படின்னு. பட் அது வந்து ஒய்ஃப் எங்கரா இருக்கிறதுனால சொல்லியிருக்கீங்க நீங்க. So, நீங்க நீங்க
See,
வந்து
there are 2 corpuses, 2 healthcare, only 1 wife though.
ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றிங்க. இது நன்றி
Very well.
சொல்லத்தான் நான் சொன்னேன் நானு. ரொம்ப
Very
ரொம்ப
well.
நன்றி.
Very well.
தேங்க்யூ. தேங்க்யூ.
Other questions?
ஒரு
Yes,
கேள்வியே இல்லைங்க.
thank you.
எல்லாத்தையும் கவர் பண்ணிட்டீங்க எனக்கு பொறுத்த அளவுக்கு. ஓகே, நன்றிங்க.
Very nice.
Thanks a lot, Vish. I'll echo this thing. It has been an awesome thing how you put things together. I just had one very specific question regarding the Indian bill. If you have any direction and how do you do we have to do something specific or special if the beneficiaries are living in the US?
For your retirement funds you're talking about?
In general, writing a will in India.
No, I think what you're going to specify there is who gets what, basically. Where they are doesn't matter. The only thing that will matter is that if, for example, your will in India has certain assets that are given to your children in the US, they may have tax consequences in the US that they have to worry about.
Right.
Now, in terms of estate planning, particularly when you have inheritance, for example, inheritance is handled a little bit differently in the US. There are certain estate tax provisions that come into play in the US, but as far as I know, the estate taxes only apply when the estate is really large. Now, if you have estate up to $15 million, up to 15 million, the process is very simple and very straightforward. If your estate value is more than $15 million, then it becomes a lot more complicated. So,
This is specifically for the valuation in India, you're
Yes,
saying, Vish.
correct,
Okay.
correct,
Okay.
correct,
Alright.
correct.
But otherwise, writing the will is usually just meeting with a lawyer, drafting it, and
Very straightforward. Yeah, very,
Okay.
very straightforward. It is actually a 1 or 2 day exercise, basically. But you have to make sure in the will only says what goes to who. It doesn't tell what is there. A separate annexure contains all the assets. You have to maintain
Correct.
that list yourself and update that regularly.
all
right?
right. Perfect.
What the
Very
will is
good.
saying that it will give that these are the people who are eligible to get my assets and this what proportion they get it. You can say my financial assets, my bank accounts go this way, my stock investments go this way. You can specify different things in the will, but you don't actually put the asset name itself in the will. The actual assets are maintained in a separate annexure which is attached to the will.
All right. Thank you very much, and thanks for an excellent presentation. Thank you, Vish.
Welcome. Other questions?
If we need any attorney help for Indian will, you'll have some referrals in India?
Yes.
In Chennai?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'll tell you, there is a girl who's a CG alumnus. She's a CG alumnus. She decided to finish engineering and then went and did law. She's a practicing lawyer in Madras High Court. She's my attorney for all things in India. She does a great job of creating wills, writing contracts, discussing anything about contractual issues, etc. All that. She's very good at that. I am happy to introduce you to her. She's a brilliant girl. PG.
Right.
alumnus.
I have a situation where I have a joint property with my nephew, and he's worried about how that will all be handled later on. So it's a little complicated, but
Understood.
hopefully she can.
Understood. She can help you with that. Definitely help you with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Other questions?
Thanks, Vish. Great presentation. Can you share the presentation by email or something?
Yes.
Or recording? Okay, thank
I
you.
think this presentation actually is prepared using Gamma. So I think there is a way to take this and create a PowerPoint out of it. I had to figure out a way to do that. By the way, Gamma is an excellent product. If you guys want to put presentation, Gamma is really amazing. It lets you do a lot of the work that you have to do in a PowerPoint yourself. What I had to do in this presentation is I provided all the content and asked Gamma to write the slides based on the content I gave. And he did a great job, actually. And Gamma is a very cheap, it's about like $5 or $6 a month. Amazing software. I believe that Gamma also allows you to take this presentation and make a PowerPoint out of it. Once I do that, I can send you the PowerPoint or the PDF part of that. No problem.
Gamma is more like a AI platform or
It is
something?
the Gamma AI. Yeah, it's a Gamma AI platform. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Gamma.ai.
Anything, you are a great reference. Nice presentation. Thanks to be in touch with you, and
Absolutely.
all your experiences you are giving it in a platter. We are really blessed to be part of the community
You're
and
most welcome,
get your
sir.
experience. Thank you.
I'm very happy to provide help and information because all of it is just something that has been done over the last several years, and as long as it provides you a starting point for all of you guys, that's exactly the intent. So I'm happy to hear that it is useful to you.
Thanks, Vish. Bye.
Vish, can you go back to your contact? Because I just want to write it to your
Yes.
phone number.
Yes. Sure. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Vish. Much appreciated.
Okay.
Learned a lot. Yeah, happy
Very
to be
nice.
part of the community. Thank you.
Was it, let me ask you guys, was it something that you expected? Same as expected, better than expected?
For me, it's better than expected.
Okay.
Better than expected.
Yeah, much more than what I expected
Yeah.
to get. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, one of your another participant said that their parents are going through, and he also shared something maybe very minimum, but that makes us, we will be like that only soon. Yeah.
A lot of these things are not very obvious, and a lot of them people don't tell you these things. When you only encounter situations, you find out the complexity. I can tell you that the number of people I have reached out to help, both in the US as well as in India, for many of these things, people are willing to help. Fortunately, I was able to reach to the right people to ask the questions at the right time. In terms of government, Social Security Administration is very good. Only thing is, for most things, you have to physically go there. But once you go there, they do a very good job of answering all your questions. For Medicare and Medicare related stuff, there is plenty of good documentation available, and each city, at least in Texas, a lot of the city administration conducts webinars for senior citizens to talk about Medicare. I attended one in Leander, Texas last month. Brilliantly done. This is a government service, right? The city of Leander does a service for senior citizens. They bring experts to talk about Medicare, Medicaid, Medigap. I found most of the information in that seminar, actually. So if you're in the US, there are resources available for you to get all this information in a very nice form. It's not the same in India. Getting information in India is a little tricky. Sometimes people give you wrong information, misleading information. So you have to be careful what you listen to in India. I have found often that most people have half information, or they assume things that they shouldn't be assuming. So you have to be careful. A lot of them don't understand what OCI means. To them, it's either resident or non-resident. They didn't realize that in a non-resident, there are multiple categories. So they'll classify everything into one, and they make assumptions about you which are not true. For example, in my case, I'm not an NRI. I'm not a citizen of India, but I'm not an NRI. But every single person here, moment they hear I don't have Indian passport, they say I'm an NRI. I said, dude, I'm not an NRI. I'm a resident of this country, right? So be a little careful with the India side of the equation, because sometimes people assume and tell you confidently something which is not quite right. You have to verify it before you can act on it. Other questions?
Yeah, it happened with my dad and mom, because the bank manager told them that you are an NRI because you have a green card, and basically told them to open an NRO account,
which is against the law. By the way.
No, but the bank manager just assumed, and then I did further research and figured out that, look, if they are the same rule that you mentioned here, right? Meaning they are all retired 80 plus years. So they come here and go back and forth, maintaining that 6 month a year residency aspect of it. So, basically I told them, look, you have your residency, like you are reporting your taxes as a resident. So you don't need that NRO account, right? But the bank manager just assumed and said, you should open it, right? So you're correct. Yeah. I mean, depending on the person, they are like, they assume things and tell people.
Similarly, resident, non-resident, there are multiple categories. For taxation purposes, there's certain criteria to be resident, non-resident. For opening bank accounts, NRA accounts, it's not under the taxation law, it's under the Foreign Exchange Management Authority line. So FEMA is an organization in India. FEMA decides what accounts who can hold in this country. So the fact that a resident Indian cannot hold an NRA account, or a non-resident account cannot hold a regular savings account, those decisions are made by FEMA, and FEMA decides resident, non-resident using criteria that is different from the tax authorities. You have to be very careful. The non-resident resident is not a one department issue, it's a multi-departmental issue. So people confuse between taxation and foreign exchange management. Be very careful, because certain things that are doable and allowed in this country are based on taxation law, and certain things are based on foreign exchange management authority law. So if you have questions, then I'm happy to help, because this is something that most people don't understand. I think it's one and the same. Other questions, comments?
Yeah, Vish, one thing that I would caution the people is, if you have an Indian debit card, okay, and you will have enough assets inside it, just don't use that debit card abroad, right, to buy stuff or pay for stuff, right? Basically, there is where your FEMA violation starts, and you have to start answering, and that complicates this thing. So Indian debit card, use only for India, keep it there, and don't, meaning even if you have significant assets out there, try not to use it out of India.
One thing I can tell you is that the cards, the cards that the debit card and credit cards issued by banks in India, there are options for you to not make it work internationally or make it work internationally. However, see, for example, in my case, I try and use all my expenses when I'm traveling in the US with my India cards. I have India business credit card to use, which means I'm paying expenses in dollars, but I'm paying back to the credit card company in rupees. The problem is all that money that I'm using counts towards my limit for how much I can transfer from India to US. The liberalized remittance scheme that Reserve Bank of India has allows every resident of India, every Indian resident, to transfer up to $250,000 per financial year per person to the US. All these credit card usage I'm doing all counts towards that, right? So you have to be careful to make sure if you're spending a lot of money in the US using an India credit card, all that expenses are considered to be foreign exchange transactions and count against the LRS quota. So when you're trying to move a bunch of money from India to there, you may end up finding out that you already hit the limit and that you can't transfer anymore. So those kind of things you have to watch out for. But I think that the better option is to do all the US spend using US accounts, US credit cards, and US debit cards, and do all the spend in India and India accounts, India specific debit cards. If you're going to use India card in the US or US card in India, using US card in India definitely doesn't make any sense. Using India card in the US sometimes is okay because my card, for example, a HDFC card I have, I get tremendous amount of benefits for using my card in the US. I get lots of loyalty points. I get free stays in lounges all over the country, all over the world. I get free hotel stays, etc. All that because they want to promote someone to use this card very well and do that. And I'm a very good candidate for them. But in general, I agree with you. The card used in India card issued in India should be used in India, and card issued in the US should be used in this. The only exception is UPI. If you have UPI, if you set up UPI in India, you can use it from anywhere in the world. Extremely convenient to do that. A lot of people don't know that very well. You can once you set up UPI in India, you can use it from anywhere in the world. For all payments in India, you can use UPI, no matter where you are. Other questions, comments, criticism?
Hey, on this debit card, just a quick question. If I buy from US, if I buy something from Indian websites and send to Indian addresses, no problem in using the Indian debit card, right?
The website is a US website, you're saying?
No, it's a Indian website. I'm just doing it from.
No problem at all. No problem. I have when I was in the US the last 5 months, I had bought stuff for my sister from Amazon India and delivered to her house using my card, and from here there's no problem with that.
Okay.
Absolutely no problem with that. No issues at all. Other comments?
Thank you, sir. I mean, I had the opportunity to see you around like 2010, back when I was doing my bachelor's in CEG, and
wow. Amazing.
one thing that's I'm admiring the most is your consistency. Like you haven't given up. Like consistently every year, I'm seeing you active in almost all the forums, and how engaged you are. That's something that's very inspiring. And also, you mentioned about two things. One is the consultancy. I would like to learn more about that, and also the counseling part. How you shifted. My personal experience, like with everything that's going around, yes, mental health and everything is becoming a big problem. And the other main thing is like no one is actually well versed to handle those. Like even if you have any issues with the family, like even with professional help, it just goes to an extent. So I want to mix that both, and definitely would love to hear more from you.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Most definitely. Actually, I'll tell you interestingly, my client base for counseling, as I told you, it's from all over the world. I have more clients from US and Canada than in India, actually. And it turns out that people who are coming for counseling who are based in the US, all my clients are Indian origin people, first of all. But those who live in the US have gone to a counselor or a therapist in the US. And for certain things, they're not able to get the help because a counselor or a therapist in the US does a great job, but they don't have the cultural and social understanding of how we think, what we think. So many of my clients who come for counseling from the US, by the way, I'm not licensed to do practice in the US, so I'm not practicing in the US. All my counseling is online only. You have to pay in rupees, and you have to pay to my bank account from your bank account in India. I don't take any foreign currency, foreign bank. Because I'll be very clear, because if I take money in the dollars, or if I publish in the US, then I have to have a license to practice in the US. Getting a license is not a problem, but just I haven't had a reason to have a license there. But half my clients are based in the US and Canada. They come online through Google Meet or Zoom, and get counseling there. The number of problems I see people coming up with, particularly the generation who's between 18 and 35, tremendous type of issues they're facing that I didn't face during that age actually, right? So,
Yep.
You're right. The demand is high. The issues are real. The need is there definitely, and I'm actually quite happy to say that youngsters are far more willing to accept that they need help and come to me. And what is surprising to me is the disproportionate high number of women clients I have. As I told you, more than 80% of my clients are women, and the kind of issues they come to you with and explain and stuff like that. When at the end of the counseling, when they go back and say, "You made a big difference in my life, I got clarity," that fulfillment and satisfaction, even $1 trillion cannot get you.
I totally get it. And I wanted to do pro bono, so do let me know how I can get more information from you, and
Sure.
I can connect you in that.
Absolutely, definitely.
Thank
You can
you,
reach
sir.
out to me or WhatsApp me. Yes. Other questions, comments? What was not good in the presentation? What is missing? Somebody can tell. I can probably add more content. If something that you wanted to see is missing, then please let me know. I try to cover.
So this is quite a good content, and I don't know whether you already do it, but maybe like in YouTube video or something, and some forum, it would serve a lot more people.
Yeah, this presentation that we make is recorded. So what we plan to do is to, if the recording comes out okay, then we want to publish in our CEG Connect YouTube channel. CEG Connect has its own YouTube channel. It's a free YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the channel. All the videos we did with all the CEG Connect programs are there in the channel. So this also would become part of the recording in the channel. It will take a few days for us to process this whole thing and make sure it's okay. But yes, the idea is to be able to make this available in YouTube for people to watch and read, because they can probably look at parts of this presentation and learn only whatever they want to learn, but all of it will be available.
ஓகே, உங்களுக்கு வந்து அட்வைஸ் கேட்டிருந்தீங்க என்ன ஆட் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு. நான் சொல்லுவேன், அந்த பிக்சர் கப்புள் பிக்சர் எல்லாம் போட்டிருந்தீங்களா போட்டோவை, அது வந்து உங்க 2 பேருக்கு பிக்சர் போடுங்க, யாரு எங்க ஒய்ஃப்னு பார்க்கலாம்னு பாக்குறேன் நான். நன்றி.
Okay. Okay. Other questions? Other comments? Very nice. Very, very nice. Thank you for staying, guys, and thank you for your feedback. If you have any future questions about the presentation, as I said, I'm trying to make this into a PDF and send it and publish it as soon as possible. The recording, we'll try and put it in YouTube also as soon as possible. But if you have anything that was missed or you wanted to ask some question, by all means, you can reach out to me via WhatsApp. For the foreseeable future, I'll be living in India for at least the next few months. I'll be here. The earliest we might come back there is probably sometime in September, if at all. But if you are going to be coming to India, by all means, please give us a shout, visit us. A lot of our alumni come and visit us, actually. I'm very happy to say that. A lot of our alumni, when they come via India, they give me a call and say, "Hey, I just want to come and catch up with you." Many of them come home. So my wife knows as many alumni as I know, actually. So if you're going to be in India, if you're going to be in Chennai, if you have some time, please give us a call, stop by, visit us. We'll be happy to host you and spend time with you. Okay?
Awesome. Thanks. Very nice presentation. Awesome.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then we will finish the session, guys. Again, thank you for your time. And again, any questions, please shoot me feedback. What would be helpful, finally, before I close, is that you guys can put some feedback about this stuff in our WhatsApp groups. People who could not attend at least will know that what they missed, and they can probably make use of the announcement. So, but some amount of feedback from you would help people to understand what you got out of that. Anything you can write about this presentation, how it was, what you got out of it, what was useful, what was not useful, etc., etc. You can just put that. Feedback is important because I plan to continuously update this material based on new information as I gather, so that it stays current. This is not the only group I'm presenting to. There are quite a lot of groups in the US who had asked for this. My wife's college alumni people have a separate group. They wanted me to present this to them also. Similarly, I have other groups in the US who asked for this presentation. So I'll be updating the content with feedback from everyone who sees it. So if you have any specific feedback, any improvement or anything like that, please do not hesitate. Send me a note. I will update the presentation accordingly. But please write feedback in the WhatsApp groups for me. That will help me to I'll help others to also understand what information is available to them. Okay?
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you.